Good afternoon, patrons, and welcome to the August sort of 2018 Patroncast. Oh yes, it is time for the Patroncast again, and I'm in a good mood. I'm in a very good mood today, because two things that could kind of, if you're really determined to turn this opening bit into a bit where there's a theme or whatever, two things that are sort of similar have come to an end. Two things you could describe as sort of droughts, if you will. One, the heat wave that was causing droughts in part of the UK. So you see where I'm going with this. This is all fine. The heat wave seems to have broken. It's September now. I know we're doing the August, but it's kind of September. You know what I mean? Actually, technically, I'm recording this on the... Wait, is it the last day of... Yes, it's the last day of August. I'm recording this on the 31st. So technically, I'm recording this in August. This is all 100% legit. But anyway, the heatwave seems to be over, the heat has broken, autumn is here, summer is dead, long live cooler weather, which is beautiful. It's a lot more comfortable to record. And the actual summer games drought seems to have most definitely come to an end. Because this August was really bad. Really, really bad. If you've noticed, we've done a few retrospectives and looks back to kind of classic games like Perfect Dark and Burnout Paradise and Super Meat Boy, as well as looking to a couple of things that technically weren't actually that old, but they were out for a fair while. We only just got around to them, like Descenders. Oh, I forgot Crackdown. Sorry. I forgot flipping Crackdown. I should not forget that, because, that's got a decent chance of, coming back. And Crisis 2. Yeah, there was a lot of them, wasn't there? Yeah, that's because nothing was bloody coming out. There was just nothing coming out in August. There's normally a period during summer where very little comes out, but it got really, really bad. This is not a problem in September, and actually it's worked out really nice so far. So, there was Burnout Paradise Remastered, then Universe Sim, and then Scum. This is just this week, and then Need to Know and 2 Point Hospital. All of those are new releases that are really cool. And at the time of recording, Universe Sim and Scum have both gone really, really well. Loads of views, which is marvellous. In fact, time of recording, we're actually number one on YouTube for the Universe Sim. If you search for the Universe Sim, our video is the top ranking one, which is really, really cool indeed. So that's got loads and loads of lovely views, which is very, very nice indeed. And hopefully Need to Know and 2 Point Hospital go on to do as well. But you magnificent future people with your hover cars, you'll already know about that. So, if both of those were a bit underwhelming and didn't really get the views, you'll know about it. August, fun month, because I kind of mentioned this last month, but now we've actually got the data. August is the first month I've kind of gone through the new plan I was discussing, which is kind of really try doing a lot more one-offs and a lot less mini-series. We kind of tried to do that a little bit in July, but July did have some other stuff. July had the tail end of the Vampire series, and it had, the mini-series for Hitman 2, and it had, the little West of Loathing mini-series as well. So, there were a few little series floating around. August is kind of the first month I've really committed to this idea where, there are far fewer days where what you've got on a given day is 2 videos, but they're both, a high number in a series. That still happens on Thursdays. For the time, though actually not anymore, because of course The Crew 2 just actually ended. So The Crew 2 is now... Is it over at the time? Yeah, will actually be over by the time you actually hear this. The finale will have been up on Saturday. That was such fun. That was so much fun to pull together. That worked really nicely. That's been such a lovely little thing to do. So we'll definitely do more things of that nature in future. I don't know exactly what... we've got a couple of ideas, me and Dan and Matt. We've kind of had a few chats about a few things we might want to do. So we'll see. We'll see how all of that fits together. But instead, actually, this month we've actually had, by which I mean, August, not September, even though you're hearing this in September. On Monday, there's been a special new one-off, and on Tuesday and on Wednesday, and on Friday and on Saturday, there's been a brand new one-off on 5 different days of the week, and then on the Thursdays and the Sundays, it's been a 2-parter where they've both been series, but I've been restricting it to the series that are really popular. Crusader Kings 2, Fallout, and the Crew 2 stuff. And it's worked really well. It's worked really nicely, actually. It seems to have gone down really well. The videos are being really well viewed. There's lots of comments. Seems to just kind of be well accepted. Now, if you just look at the absolute views, it does look like August has actually done worse than July, but that's kind of cheating to look at it that way, because, there was a massive bundle of Fallout 3 is better than you think views, which has got like 2.2 million views at this point. And there was a big spike of them at first, and then that's tailing off a little bit. They were still producing like, a decent number of views on a day-to-day basis, which is really, really cool indeed. It is still kind of, gently ticking up, which is lovely. In fact, I just went to check. We are indeed still number 1 in the world. If you search for Fallout 3 on YouTube, Fallout 3 is better than you think. I tweeted about that. I actually just tweeted, a you're welcome gif at Bethesda. And they actually tweeted back with a thank you gif, which was very, very nice of them. So that was fun. But yeah, I think it's actually worked really, really nicely. Like, now the Crew 2 has come to an end, I need to kind of have a think about what I'm going to do going forward. Like, as a temporary thing, it's just going to mean even more one-offs. So, like, next week, there's going to be a brand new one-off for a game you've never seen before on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So Thursday's Crusader Kings 2 and something brand new as well. Like, at some point, I'm going to want to start a new series, and I do have something in mind for that. But it takes a little bit of planning. It's taking a little bit of planning to do. Plus, like, I don't really want to kind of jump into it right now and begin something that's super long, because, yeah, we're really in the middle of really, really, really damn big launch schedules right now. Like, we've got Spider-Man on the PS4's coming up, Mega Aquarium, which is a small little game that's like, build your own aquarium, but I love aquariums, so I'm really looking forward to that one. That's coming up. Like, Shadow of the Tomb Raiders coming out, Recourse hitting PC. I never caught it in its original version, so I want to catch that on PC, and Boundless, and 60 Parsecs, and Life is Strange 2, and all sorts of stuff. There's so much stuff coming out. I don't really want to kind of begin something big and serious-y at the moment, just because we're right in the middle of crazy launch territory. And like, Fallout 76 is also coming up pretty soon, and whenever the beta is for that, and then whenever the launch is for that. So that's going to be eating up a lot of space, understandably. So I don't really want something kind of that might clash with that, that's going to make the schedule a bit kind of blocked up with something different. So we'll have a think, but I'm pretty happy with how the one-off schedule's going right now. I think people are responding to it really, really nicely. Like, it takes a bit more organising, because I put a lot of thought into making sure that games that are, like, too similar don't go next to each other. So, like, look at this last week, for example. This took a lot of fiddling around. So, like, we had Burnout Remastered on Thursday. So that's kind of like, a fairly well-known, classic, fast-paced, real-time, racing-y action game. And I followed that up with Universe Sim, which is, a very small, indie, slow-paced contemplation god game type thing. So I decided to follow that up on Wednesday with Scum, where we've got a, not exactly AAA, but it's published by Devolver Digital. It's pretty well known, it's pretty popular, big, survivally, shooty, zombie, smack him in the head, crafty. Okay, that's nice and different. And then we go into Crusader Kings 2 and the Crew 2 on Thursday. Then we had Need to Know. Okay, so we've got something, a lot more slow and tactical and almost papers pleasy, going into 2 Point Hospital. Okay, so we've actually basically got some form of, builder, like a theme park or a hospital build or something of that description, coming in on Saturday, into Fallout on Sunday, so very tense, shootery. I try and do that every week. Like, if you ever look at the videos I've put out, if you consider, like, the videos that are next to each other, I always make sure that two similar videos aren't actually cohabiting. I always make sure that whatever's out on a given day is as different as possible from what was out the day before, which can be very tricky, because obviously you also want to be, covering a game the day it comes out if you can, but arguably that's more important for games where you've got, like, any chance of actually maybe ranking. So the Universe Sim, I wanted to cover that the day it actually launched if I could. So Burnout Remastered, kind of, that wasn't the day it came out, it was just vaguely close by, it just happened to be a good thing. So some games are kind of anchored in place, and then I have to figure out the right games to fit around them, and I spend a lot of time staring at a Google Calendar with which I use to plan the channel. Claire mocks me for this. She finds it very amusing. That I spend a lot of time just staring at a Google Calendar. I've got it in front of me right now, in fact, would you believe? With all the colour-coded games, green for this is ready to go, and yellow for this has been rendered but you haven't uploaded it yet, you stupid bastard. Orange for it's been recorded but not actually edited, and red for this is probably going to go here but you haven't actually recorded it yet, and all the rest of it. Ooh. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely thing. But yeah, a lot of thought goes into that, and it's been a bit more complicated than usual when there's a lot more one-offs. Because, like, when you can use days where it's just, like, parts of a series, you can use those as buffers between different one-offs. So therefore, one-offs that are quite similar can be quite close to each other. It doesn't really matter so much. But yeah, Interesting stuff. I like the way August has gone. I think I'm gonna, have a very one-off heavy September as well. Anyway, that's enough about that. Oh, it's so nice the heat wave's over. You have no clue how much more pleasant it is now the heat wave is done. I was just sweltering during last month's Patroncast. It was ridiculous. Let's move on to the questions and begin at the oldest ones, because the early bird does indeed catch the worm. John, if you were to restructure the story of Fallout 4 to improve the narrative of the main plot, what changes would you make? Ooh, this is an interesting one. I think there's one thing you could do, and it's going to sound really minor, but I think it actually would make a really big difference to how people feel about Fallout 4, which is you've introduced the Minutemen at the wrong point in the story. Having the first faction you run into be the Minutemen is the wrong way round. Because I bet what a lot of people did was, okay, they find the Minutemen and think, okay, this is a Bethesda game, I wonder if everyone's essential. Get out that minigun they've just given you, drop a quick save, and then just basically fire on the people, and oh, they're all essential and they don't attack you. And therefore everyone thought, oh no, it's another Bethesda game full of essentials. What a load of rubbish. You can't kill any of the essential characters. Oh no, I'm so restricted, I can't do anything. And as a result, they didn't actually try doing that again the next time they ran into, a different faction. They just assumed, oh, Bethesda and all their essentials, which has always been, something that's been well overstated. In Fallout 3, there's very few essentials, and most of them overwhelmingly lose their essential tag after you've completed the quests that are associated with them. You can do a really good job clearing out, a huge part of Fallout 3. Trust me, I've tried. But the Minutemen have a very specific role within Fallout 4, you see. They're yes man. Because if you've got a game where there's multiple factions, you've got to have a fallback faction. Because, okay, unless you're going to do something really weird like they did back in Morrowind, where, killing a quest-important character you can do, but the game just says, yeah, by the way, you've just basically doomed the world, so, either have fun in your doomed world or just reload your last save, you stupid bastard. Or you have to have some form of fallback. New Vegas, found a very elegant way of doing it, saying, hey, I'm actually software, so you can try and kill me, but I'll just move into a new body which has just been produced somewhere, so it doesn't matter, I'll just pop back up. And that actually, that makes sense. There's actually a canonical reason why there is an effectively immortal fallback faction in New Vegas. But in Fallout 4, that fallback faction is the Minutemen, and what a lot of people don't realise is the first time you run into, say, the Railroad Headquarters, or the Brotherhood, or your own flipping son in the Institute, you can just open fire on them and kill them instantly, and just immediately fail all their associated quests and be locked out of that faction forever. 100%, you can just basically, on your first meeting with the Railroad, just gun them down, and that's it. You can't use the Railroad anymore. Railroad is just out of the game, and the game gets around the fact that you're supposed to take the thing in the actual courser's head to Tinker Tom by just letting you use his computer. If the Railroad are dead or they're hostile, you can just use Tinker Tom's computer to basically bypass that bit of the plot. You can basically just kill Dance and wipe out the Brotherhood at the police station, and then when the Brotherhood show up, they're just hostile to you, and you just can't work with the Brotherhood anymore. But, if you can accidentally kill and annoy and have yourself exiled from every other faction, there's got to be a fallback faction, or the game isn't completable. And that was the Minutemen, but you don't introduce them first. Yes Man, you introduce them last after everyone's already had a chance to meet the NCR and the Legion, and, well, you don't necessarily have to meet Mr. House before you actually meet Yes Man, but you are at least told about him, because you can't enter the strip without Victor approaching you and saying, hey, go see Mr. House. So I just take the Minutemen and just move them way further back into the plot. Because, yeah, if you actually met, say, the Brotherhood, first up, if you found that signal, went to the police station, you thought, oh, it's an actual faction, I'll just drop a quick save and then murder them. Oh, they actually died and have failed all their associated quests, and I've screwed up my relationship with the Brotherhood. Oh, wow, this game actually has real choice and consequence, where if you actually kill a character, you've, screwed up your relationship with that faction and lost all their quests and goodies and rewards forever. That's kind of cool. I guess I'll responsibly decide who to kill and who not to kill, and, if I decide I don't like a faction, I can actually just go and wipe them out whenever I want. That's really damn cool, and I'll be careful from now on. But because the very first faction you run into is the immortal one, people just assumed that wasn't the case. It's a tiny change, but I think it actually would have improved people's experience of Fallout 4 quite a flipping lot. What did you think of the Cyberpunk 2077 gameplay walkthrough? Well, it looks stunning. Particularly just the streets, they feel busy and bustling. The amount of detail there is incredible. The combat looks fun and interesting. There's some really fun stuff there. I like the fact it looks like there are choices and characters you can go to meet or not go to meet and try to do things in a stealthy way and bypassy way. Yeah, there's an awful lot I like there. Unquestionably, there's a really large amount of stuff that looks really, really damn cool. So yeah, I am looking forward to that a lot. That looks really, really cool. Have you ever considered playing Ape Escape? You run through time chasing monkeys with a giant butterfly net. It's all things to all people. You know, I'd heard of Ape Escape, but I never knew what it was about. Is it actually about time chasing monkeys with giant butterfly nets? That's interesting. Right, I might well give that one a look at some point because that's intriguing. John, is there any chance of you covering Spyro the Dragon in the near future as the remake is coming out rather soon? Okay, so I learned a lesson at one point not too long ago, which is, this was from the Crash Bandicoot video, which is, as a general rule, I'm just going to keep a polite distance from, you know, big PlayStation properties that are getting revivals. Because the thing is, I never played the original Crash Bandicoot games, and I played the, whatever it was called, the remastered versions they brought out, and I basically said, okay, these are pretty fun, they've aged pretty well, I had a nice time with it. And people hated those videos. Like, all of the fans of Crash Bandicoot were like, oh, you don't get it, you're not playing it right, why do you suck so much at this game, you missed this, you missed that, you got this wrong, God, I hate this so much. And it was just, yeah, that was just kind of, you know, not a fun thing for me. You know, I actually went in and said, hey, your game's pretty good. And the response from the community was, you didn't say it was good enough. Like, you didn't appreciate it right. So, yeah, at this point, like, when they do revivals of old PlayStation properties I never played the first time round, I think I'm just going to keep a distance. Because I strongly suspect that if I were to look at Spyro and say, yeah, this has actually aged pretty well, I had a nice time with this, there might be a lot of Spyro the Dragon fans who just tell me, no, you did it wrong, you used the wrong thing at the wrong time. So I was planning to just give that one a polite berth. Like, you know, it's a nostalgia thing. When you actually decide to revive an old game from the PlayStation N64 era, it's mostly a nostalgia thing for the people who are fans of the original. I think outsiders aren't really welcome at that party. I'm not sure we've got much to contribute. So I'm going to be honest, my plan was to just politely give that one a pass. John, what are your most anticipated games of the year? Okay. Red Dead 2. Wait, Red Dead 2's fallen out to... Has that fallen to next year now? Wait, hang on, I've forgotten when that fell out to. No, that's still down as 2018. Sorry, I must be thinking of something else that just kind of fell out to 2019. Sorry if I just panicked anyone. Don't worry. Red Dead's still apparently coming out in 2018. And on top of that, obviously, Spider-Man. That's coming out very, very soon indeed. That's looking cool. Obviously, Fallout 76. And Hitman 2. No, not that one. The new one. So yeah, there's a bunch of really fun stuff coming out so far later this year. There's a lot of really, really interesting, cool stuff. Also, little less well-known ones. There's one that's not so 100% obvious. The Occupation. That, I think, looks really, really cool indeed. It's kind of spy-y and stealthy and narrative-y. Look it up if you don't know anything about The Occupation. It's looking very, very cool indeed. Who's your favourite Marvel villain? I'm going to go for Hela from Thor 3, and that's probably mostly due to Cate Blanchett just selling the hell out of that character. Like, that was a fun character, but Cate Blanchett just did a marvellous job with her. So, yeah, Hela is really, really cool indeed. So, actually, I kind of hope we see her again, because it kind of looked like she maybe teleported away at the end before she was, like, stabbed to death. So, maybe she'll be back at some point. I wouldn't be opposed to her coming back. John, knowing the results of your decisions, what decision would you like to change most in Crusader Kings 2? Okay, I can't answer this one, because there is absolutely one decision, and Claire, when she edits the Patroncast, because I record the Patroncast, but Claire edits it together, Claire's gonna know, alright, she is going to know the decision I'm referring to. It hasn't happened yet, you'll know it when you see it, but at one point, very soon indeed, I am going to make the most spectacularly stupid decision you have ever seen. You'll know it when it happens. You'll know it when it happens. So I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm afraid it actually happens in a part that hasn't happened yet. But it's coming up very soon, and you'll know it when you see it. John, are you disappointed that aren't as many people getting into the role-playing as the Kings in the Crusader Kings 2 comments as there were in Rome Total War? Not really, to be honest. That was kind of a weird one-off, like, lightning in a bottle thing, that there was so much roleplay in the comments in Rome. And, like, a few people have done it a bit in Crusader Kings 2, but it doesn't really kind of bother me it's not there, because that was just, like, a one-off thing I never really expected to be repeated or become a regular thing. Like, now it occasionally shows up, like, the odd person role-playing as a king shows up in the comments. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun indeed. Like, I think that's actually a healthy balance, because it was fun in Rome Total War, and then in Medieval 2, because it came straight after, like, everyone tried to do the same thing, but Medieval 2 didn't quite lend itself to it quite as well as Rome 1 did, so, like, it kind of felt a bit forced, and, like, it just kind of faded off over time. So that was a bit more awkward. So, like, it doesn't always help to have people desperately trying to make that happen. But, like, I think there's a nice little amount of it in Crusader Kings 2. It happens on occasion. But, like, I'm definitely not sad it doesn't happen. What I'm really thrilled about is I don't think it's got quite Rome Total War views, but Crusader Kings 2 has definitely been doing, like, really, really well. Like, nearly as good as, like, a typical Fallout series. Well, maybe not quite that high, but, in that ballpark, it's been a really huge success, and I'm so glad about that. John, when are you going to update the front page of the channel? I know. The actual channel trailer needs an update. I absolutely need to make a new channel trailer, and I need to update the actual shelves of content, because some of that is getting on a little bit at this point. You are not wrong. I will look at that at some point this month. I will try and remember to actually go over that, record a brand new trailer, and actually redo the shelves of content, because, yeah, there is definitely some older stuff there, and it could definitely do with being refreshed a little bit. Though I'll definitely keep, quite a few of the classics floating around, but I think we can bring some new stuff in as well. That's certainly true. Also, what was the most useful thing you learnt studying classics? I'm going to answer this one a little bit kind of... I don't know if this is like a real proper answer or not, whether you consider this kind of like the answer you were looking for. Like, in some ways, it wasn't so much any individual thing I studied. And this is something I do actually think about, like, university level education, that unless you're doing something super vocational, like, literally studying a form of medicine to become that sort of a doctor, like, the thing you actually learn at university is mostly irrelevant. University is for learning how to learn. Like, the most important things I learned at my university were basically, if I get given a task where there's a huge reading list and, like, a week later, I'm going to have to sit down in an office with one or two other people and have a discussion with someone who literally wrote books on that exact topic and hold my own discussion. Like, you need to be really good at absorbing information very, very quickly indeed. So the ability to, like, start off knowing nothing about something, but, like, a week later be able to basically pass yourself off as a semi-expert. That can be quite important. And that's equal parts learning how to absorb information very quickly and prioritize what you should and shouldn't try and learn, and bullshitting. Like, the art of bullshitting will do you so much good in your life. Like, being able to portray yourself as a competent, capable individual can, basically do a lot of good work for you when you're doing job interviews. And I think I actually do a good interview. I think I actually, one of the skills I've always been very proud of is I think I actually am pretty damn decent at job interviews. So generally, I've got a pretty good hit rate when it comes to me going and interviewing for a job as to, like, how likely I am to get that job. Like, I wasn't when I was younger. I was terrible at it when I was fresh out of university. But, like, yeah, more recently, like in the past, I don't know, 6 years or whatever, yeah, I've actually had a pretty high strike rate whenever I've actually wanted to apply for a job and go and actually sit down and interview with people. So, those two skills, those are good skills. Could you please say hello headquarters a la your Deadly Premonition series with a second or so of silence before and after it? I'd love to use it as a notification sound. Oh, go on then. Hello headquarters! It's me! I actually just added an "it's me" on the end. Sorry, you didn't even ask for that. I'll do that again for you better. Hello headquarters! There you go. Hopefully that's better for you. Hi John, what is a game genre that doesn't get a huge amount of representation either on your channel or on YouTube in general, and why do you think that is? I'm actually going to not just say on YouTube and on my channel, I'm going to say, like, in general from devs, whatever happened to God games? Like, I was thinking about this recently because the Universe Sim was around and I really like the Universe Sim. What happened to God games? Like, they used to be a big deal. Like, some of the biggest, well-known, most well-loved games in the world were God games, and then they just sort of stopped. Where did they go? Let's have more God games, damn it. Have you ever considered playing Supreme Commander Forged Alliance? RTS from 2007, really impressive graphics for its time, and huge battles with up to 1,000 units per team in custom battles. Really fun, still has an active player base. That does sound fun. Claire, add it to the long list. What would you recommend someone with very little marketing experience to do to get better at marketing, considering that you made a career in marketing without really having any experience? Well, where I started off was as the exact job title was Assistant Product Manager, because product management is a really interesting thing, because it's a little bit of everything. Product managers have to, not just handle marketing plans and writing copy, they also handle, like, stock levels and reordering and liaising with all the different departments. Like, I think, like, being, like, an assistant product manager or something of that nature, like, some form of assistant in a role that's got product in the title is a really good little doorway to moving into marketing over time, because you'll do a little bit of everything, you'll just be a generalist, but you will learn a fair bit about marketing, enough that you'll probably be able to actually apply to a marketing assistant role and say, look, I do have some relevant experience, and that can get you that, and then you can work your way up further in that regard. Like me, I'm mostly self-taught. I was mostly self-taught or taught by people around me. Like, I don't have any formal marketing qualifications at all. Like, I've been on, like, the odd one-day course I was sent on by companies, but for the most part, almost everything I've ever known about marketing has been entirely self-taught. And that partly was also a matter of me just finding a niche where there was a skill gap. Because, like, I always specialised in, like, online stuff back in a time when there weren't enough people doing that. And, that's a trick you couldn't repeat now, not exactly the same, because at that sort of period, which was 2008 onwards, there were a lot of companies that still weren't really doing enough online marketing, but they were starting to be interested in doing it. They wanted to do more online marketing. A lot more stuff was moving onto online. Online was becoming bigger a lot faster. So I said, okay, that's a trend. As a result of that, if I specialise in online marketing, that's probably going to work out well for me, and it did. Now, obviously, that's not just a thing you can now replicate, but if you look at things that are changing and evolving, what you think is coming up, and like, a few years ago there was a lot of talk about mobile marketing. That was a huge growth area. So the people who happen to have experience in mobile marketing, they basically got to work where they wanted and set their own wages, because they could just be headhunted like crazy. So I guess that's two things. Like, if you need to find a way in terms of just like foot in the door, try working in a product role, and that probably is a decent way to do it and won't require specific marketing experience, so you can start from nothing. Or just try and find your way into any role whatsoever inside what you think is going to be a growth area. Sorry, that was really dry. That was a really dry answer, but it's the truth, darn it, at least as I perceive it. John, has there ever been a video you thought would be entertaining but ended up being cut for one reason or another? Happens on a not irregular basis. Often if I just kind of sit down with a game and think, okay, let's just get to grips with this, and like after half an hour I'm just thinking, I'm not having fun with this. And it's not always because they're bad. Like, these games aren't bad. They just sometimes, sometimes a person and a game just don't speak the same language. They don't mesh. So, like, Black Sea Odyssey is a generally well-regarded game. And I was planning to make a video of it that was going to be up during, I can't remember whether it was late July or early August at this point. But, like, I just sat down with it and just thought, I don't get this. I'm not having a fun time with it. I don't understand why this is good, and that's not to say it's not good, it just didn't appeal to me. So I just kind of basically said, okay, that video's cancelled because I don't understand it. So as a result of that, I just deleted the footage I'd already done, never recorded a video. That's not to say, it was bad, just not for me. And as a follow-up question, has there been any game recently that actively disappointed you? I wouldn't say disappointed. I would not say, actually I'd kind of say disappointed. Thief of Thieves was such a good idea that let itself down at the end. Because this was that game, I think I played it like right at the end of July, where, you went to an area and you cased it out and you got the right disguise and you figured things out and like, you made a plan, you left equipment for yourself and, you basically set up a heist and then you decided how you were going to execute the heist, and then you executed the heist like when it got dark later and picked up on all the plans and equipment and whatever that you'd managed to arrange earlier, and depending on what you did and didn't do during preparation, the situation was different, and that was really, really good. And then the end of it happened, which was, just after you've done all of that, there's just like a cut scene where the game says, lol, no, you don't actually get to, complete the robbery that you just spent the last 2 hours planning out and slowly executing and like getting all the details right of. No, that now gets stolen from you because there's a mandatory stupid cut scene and then a weird chase scene that doesn't quite work correctly, and no. And then the game like cut to a screen saying, oh, the next episode will be out at some point. It's like, what? Hang on, what? What happened? I didn't even know this was going to be an episodic game that was going to be super short, and now you've told me the one big heist I've done, 1, didn't end properly, and 2 is the end of the game for now. Oh, that was so disappointing. Which is a shame because the actual gameplay was really good. Like, there was such a good game in waiting there, they just didn't execute it well. So yeah, Thief of Thieves I can't help but be disappointed in. Would you recommend Stellaris Console Edition for console players with zero experience in grand strategy? I'll have to get back to you on that one because I haven't played it yet. I think they've only showed it off at like Gamescom so far, and I wasn't at Gamescom. So when I can get my hands on it, I'll make a little video talking about, okay, graphically, how well does it stand up, control-wise and UI, how well does it stack up, does it like, have any problems? Because like, even on really powerful PCs, Stellaris in the late game sometimes starts, shuddering and slowing down a little bit. So I'm a little bit worried with how the consoles are going to handle that. And also, I'm not 100% sure on the controls. Like, people who have played it have generally been pretty nice about it and said, actually, it works surprisingly well. It works pretty decently. So, I will give it a look-see. But I don't know. Like, in terms of, if the actual question, is it a good grand strategy game for people with no experience? Yes, the general consensus does seem to be like, of all of the Paradox grand strategy games, it's the one that's best tutorialized, most new player friendly, most easy to get into. It's like, it's much less head crushing depth up front. It's much easier to start off with. So that's certainly true. I'd say that's absolutely true. Does that mean it's necessarily going to be best to get it on console? That's going to depend how the console edition actually ends up, and as soon as I manage to get my hands on it, I will put together a video on precisely that. If you could live the life of any of your Crusader Kings 2 characters, which would it be? I'm probably going to go for Geralt of Rivia, because the thing is, all of like the kings I've had so far have had, really stressful lives. Like, it's been very, very stressful for them. But Geralt of Rivia was just some random low-born guy, I think. I don't think he was that important at all. But then just because, he was loyal and didn't look like he was going to represent any trouble to me, I just said, hey, have this bit of, like, South Wales. Have fun. And he just basically went and had his own court. And it never really had any problems, it was never invaded or anything, he just basically got to be king of a little bit of South Wales, and he had a lovely life. Absolutely lovely life. Not least as, like, repeatedly, he seemed to just basically go for a walk in the forest near his castle and found, like, a series of naked women just wandering through the forest. I swear, he had like, he had 2 or 3 children by the end, didn't he? And they were all bastards. Because he went to the forest, found a naked woman, made her his girlfriend, and then as a result of that, they had a child, but she like died immediately. Then he went and did it again. Because even though she was dead, another child just popped out of nowhere. So, basically, I just gave him a nice, safe, comfy castle with his own court in the middle of a forest that just seemed to be filled with naked women. So that was good. He had a nice life, all things considered. And, he didn't have to worry about the stress of his dynasty or anything because they were all illegitimate. And then when he eventually did die, which was of natural causes at a grand old age, the actual castle just came back into my domain. And probably after that point, King Connor visited it a lot, because you know what King Connor was like around the ladies. Have you considered working your way through the Homeworld RTS games? It has come up before. It's not the most requested thing, and I know very little about the Homeworld games, but it's certainly one I have considered, and it's one that's kind of floating around somewhere on the long list. So it's not being planned imminently, but it is definitely something I do have in mind, yes. Good day, John. You've mentioned before you're keen on narratives and characters that emerge naturally in the course of games like Total War and Crusader Kings 2. Could it interest you in a YouTuber called Officially Devon? His whole shtick is well-written narrative Let's Plays with ongoing Total War and Crusader Kings series at the time of writing. Had a look see this guy because I hadn't actually heard of him, and yeah, it's because the channel's still very small at the minute. So I just did a quick kind of just little dive into some of the analytics that you can actually see publicly that aren't kind of buried away in his analytics suite that I do actually have access to. Yeah. For a small channel of around like 20,000 subscribers, he's got a decent amount of growth going on right now. And by the looks of it, yeah, a decent amount of video views on a day-to-day basis for a channel of that size. That's not bad at all. I'll keep half an eye on that guy, see how he gets on over time. Hi John, I saw your tweets about people worrying about you being mean to Matt. It struck me as a clear case of cultural misunderstanding of British humour between friends. Your audience being largely American, do you ever feel pressure to change your humour or mannerisms to accommodate that, or indeed to do the opposite and ham up the Britishness? Interesting question, just in case people missed this, by the way. Yeah, we kind of noticed, like, me and Matt and Dan all together noticed that, like, there were some comments in, like, the crew too, saying, hey, why are you being so mean to Matt? Like, you know, why is everyone being so nasty to Matt? And, yeah, we were a little bit confused by this at first, and we realised this, yeah, probably, as the actual question sums up there, this is probably kind of a bit of a case of simultaneously cultural misunderstanding and also misunderstanding of the format, which is... it is not uncommon at all for British people when they're really close friends, and like, I mean, like, you know, the absolute closest friends, to be quite rude to each other, just kind of throwing insults to each other. Like, you know, when me and Matt meet in person, and we absolutely love each other, we're very close friends. But like, when we meet in person, we're horrendous to each other. We're absolutely horrible to each other, because that's just how it is sometimes between two people. It's not like, you know, a universal case or anything. Like, there are some people who I know who I'm very close to who I would never be, like, you know, really rude to, just because, you know, the relationship we have just happens to be very nice and polite and whatever. But, like, you know, that is just how relationships are between certain people. And the other side of it is, in that case, we were literally making a takeoff of Top Gear, where, you know, the hosts bicker and insult each other. So yeah, there was a little bit of interesting stuff there. So like, me and Matt actually, you know, we looked at that feedback and we communicated privately, and we thought, okay, can we actually like make that better for the last two parts, both of which will now be out. So we looked at part 12, we looked at part 13, and I did some editing work, and I think Matt did a bit of editing work his side as well. And I think, you know, once we were done, the actual episode, you know, we cut out some of the comments that we just threw at each other, and we left it a little bit more, just like nice and friendly, just, you know, we made it just like, you know, a more nice, friendly road trip experience, and people seem to respond positively to that. And that might well be, yeah, maybe because such a large proportion of my audience is based in North America, where that's not really such a thing. It's a bit of a peculiar British thing. Like, in terms of, do I normally, like, you know, change things? Normally I wouldn't. Like, normally I don't. Like, I do try and stay away from, like, controversial topics if I can, if stuff's gonna be, like, a hot button topic in America in particular. And if I ever slip up and can't help but just kind of throw out a passing remark in the live stream, Claire berates me for it afterwards, because she's the one that has to deal with the fallout in the chat. I'm sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to do that, but generally I try and like avoid that sort of thing, because it just tends to make like the comments or the chat a little bit of an unpleasant place, to be honest. So I just try and stay away from it. So it's not often a case that I actually have to like change something in editing to try and remove some stuff. Sometimes, you know, because like all of the videos you see are basically improvised as I go along, sometimes a joke just won't land, and I'll listen to it back in editing and just think, does that work? And I'll just take it out. And sometimes that's just because like the punchline doesn't work, or the execution was a bit dodgy, or the timing was off. And sometimes it's going to be, okay, is that joke actually like, you know, was that actually in bad taste? Have I just made a bad taste joke, and do I actually want that to be in the video? Because like, sometimes if you make one bad taste comment, like everyone's going to focus on that, and the rest of the video is going to get totally lost, because that's going to be the thing that people focus on. So, you know, sometimes I do make decisions to make some gentle cuts, but I don't think I would ever kind of characterize it as like, me changing my humor or mannerisms. It's just a case that like, inevitably, whenever you record something that's long form and then you try and edit it down to something that's a lot shorter and snappier, stuff gets left on the editing room floor. It always has and it always will for all sorts of different reasons. So I've never kind of seen it as a problem. But yeah, it happens, but that's just kind of a natural part of the editing process. Will you be covering the Grand Tour video game? Interesting question. Like, the moment I saw this, I immediately DM'd Matt and said, like, we need to do that. Like, should we actually try and contact Amazon and, like, say, look, we've literally just made, like, a Top Gear Grand Tour style series in the Crew 2. Let us play this early, we'll do it. But then, actually, I saw some of the footage and, like, the problem is, Dan, I think, summarised this very well. I think when he did, like, a video of Deadpool, at one point, the Deadpool video game, Dan summarised this very nicely, which is, YouTubers often find comedy games don't work because the way that YouTube comedy generally works is the game is playing the role of the straight man and the YouTuber is, playing the role of the comedian. And, like, we need to play off the straight man game. The game needs to take itself seriously, and we need to, like, either, depending on your style, either kind of gently rib the game, or just kind of, tear it apart for being so stupid and taking itself so seriously, or whatever. Like, as a general rule, the game is the straight man in the comedy partnership there. So when the games are already trying to be wacky, then it kind of leaves the YouTuber in an odd space, because the YouTuber can't really be, like, a straight man to jokes that are just being read off a soundtrack by the game. And, like, if the YouTuber's desperately trying to get in their own jokes around the game's jokes, that can be a little bit awkward as well. So the problem is, the Grand Tour video game looks like it's basically going to be a fairly bare bones experience where when stuff happens, like, the actual game will play just audio clips of the actual presenters of the Grand Tour. And if that's what's going to be happening, if the game's basically reacting and doing its own jokes, then is there anything left for humans to do? So we'll keep an eye on it, but I'm not quite sure. It really depends what form the actual game turns out to be in when it's done. I believe in the past I've heard you say that you weren't 100% happy with Fallout New Vegas Kill Everything series. Have you ever had any thoughts about remaking it? And yes, indeed. Many times I have. In fact, I've got an entire little booklet of notes for if I ever were to do it, like how I'd restructure it. And it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. Like, literally at one point, I tried making the first episode of the remake, and I just wasn't happy with it. Because the problem is, I would never want to make something that I felt was retreading old ground. Like, if I was going to remake a series, then it would need to be remade totally different. Like, without a single joke being reused, or like maybe like the odd one where it's like, a friendly callback to the original series. But like, if I reused a joke, the punchline or the circumstance would have to be different. Like, I would never recreate something shot for shot, just prettier or better put together. And unquestionably, the series looks scruffy. The series looks really scruffy because I made it like only, like, I don't know, 3 months or whatever after I started being a YouTuber. It started in August of 2013. Alright, we had like, couple of 100 subs or something at the time, and I had no experience basically putting videos together. Like, it was, I think, maybe the second series I ever made. I'd made a really, really short Perfect Dark series in like 6 parts before that, and then I made like that and No Kill, and I started them at the same time, but I had basically no video making experience, so it's awkward. The editing is scruffy, the visuals are scruffy because it's recorded off the old 360 version, and the bitrate is really low, and it's only in 720p, 30 FPS, and there's a lot of stuff there that's scruffy. Like, there's a lot of jokes that still work pretty nicely, though I think the delivery is really stilted. Delivery is really muted, because like the thing is, it's hard to kind of to realise until you actually sit down and do it. Which is, if you're literally, basically, sitting with a controller in your hands in front of a big TV and you've got a microphone off to one side of you, and basically you just said, hey, just talk about what you're doing, it feels really awkward. It's a really awkward thing at first. So, like, you feel a bit awkward and self-conscious and embarrassed, so you're naturally very, you're very quiet, and now I'm just going to go over here and shoot this guy, and then, you realise you're not really, you're not projecting. What you need to do is, you need to, it's like being on a stage. You need to kind of, get your chest out and your head back, and you need to project, and you know, you need to kind of, you need to take it up a little bit. It needs to be positive and enthusiastic, and you know, you need to sound, it needs to kind of, you need to be able to tell someone's emotion from their voice. Because when you can't see someone's face and you can't see their body language, the only thing you've got to judge their emotions on is their voice. The voice has got to be really clear. You've got to absolutely be committed to what you're doing in terms of effectively what's voice acting. And I think like the original Kill Everything doesn't really do that so well. Fallout 3 Kill Everything does it pretty well. It's a little bit scruffy, but for the most part, it works very, very well indeed. Like Fallout New Vegas Kill Everything, by the end, I was starting to get like how to put it together. But like how to put a really good Kill Everything series together, I think it wasn't really perfected until Fallout 3 Kill Everything. When I think at that point, I got it. I think at that point, like I really understood it. I did it well, and I think that series holds up really nicely. Fallout New Vegas Kill Everything, I think, is very scruffy. And it's got its moments, but it's also got, like, a lot of moments I think don't work so well and are slow and awkward and whatever. But I also find myself unwilling to remake it because I hate going back and retreading old grounds. So, I don't know. Ultimately, I have no idea what I'm going to do with that eventually. I've got lots of notes. Like, maybe it wouldn't be a full remake. Maybe I'd do it as, like, a special at some point. Like, you know, for, like, a certain big milestone, like 500,000 subs or whatever, I could do, like, a special feature-length partial remake of it or something. I don't know. That's actually not a bad idea. I might make a note of that and keep that on one side. We'll see. But, yeah, unfortunately, the answer is I don't know. What aspects of Dust or Frost would you like to see in Fallout 76 or the next single-player Fallout? I don't think they'd really work in 76, because 76 is going to be a fast-paced, multiplayer, team-up, buildy type of thing, so I think, you know, the slow, careful, you're going to be absolutely torn apart on a regular basis aspects of Dust and Frost wouldn't work for that. It would just be a frustrating multiplayer experience. For single-player Fallout, I don't think there's much they could learn in terms of, like, the actual base game. But I do think that next time they do a survival mode, and given I think, you know, Fallout 4 survival mode was pretty damn solid, really interesting, a lot of people seem to be interested in that, I hope that comes back in Fallout 5. If it does come back, I mean, I think they were vaguely going in that direction anyway. Like, you know, in Fallout 4, like, in survival mode, you know, they did clearly set it up in such a way as, okay, they haven't just done it like Skyrim's legendary mode, where they just take the enemies and make them even more tanky and take you and make you even more flimsy to make it more of a challenge. They said, actually, this isn't just going to be like scaling difficulty of relative toughness between you and the enemy. We're actually going to say, you are a lot more squishy, but the enemy are actually, you know, easier to kill in survival mode than they are on very hard mode. It's just you're a lot easier to kill as well. It's a really dangerous, everybody can kill everyone else super easily sort of mode. That's nice. And like, you know, Dust and Frost take those ideas and kind of, you know, run with them in interesting directions where actually, like, you know, a load of enemies are very soft and squishy. There are problems. Unquestionably, there are a few problems. And wait, when this comes out, will Dust have already come out for this? I don't know. Right, okay. In this week's episode of Dust, which I won't actually spoil in case you haven't had a chance to see it yet, yeah, there's one moment where I feel like, you know, the fact that everyone has the ability to kill everyone else if they just happen to get a few good shots in because of the squishiness of everybody kind of creates a really big anti-climax. You'll know that moment when you get to it in the video, unquestionably. But there's interesting stuff I like that. There's interesting stuff I like. I mean, I'd like to see maybe a DLC pack to Fallout 5 that, like, you know, very specifically takes the Dust or Frost ideas and says, okay, you're now in an extreme survival scenario where there's almost no ammo anywhere and you're super weak because, I don't know, there could be a reason. Like, you know, something like you're in this old world test ground where everyone's become infected with this disease that makes you super weak, which is why everyone dies super easily. And also it's kind of driven some people mad, which is why they've, you know, they're running at you with melee weapons or whatever. And they kind of do it as like a hardcore survival experience thing where guns and ammo are super rare. It's more about melee. It's more about, you know, there's an element of psychological horror to it. That could be fun. That could be a fun sort of thing. So yeah, there absolutely are things that could be polished up. Like Dust and Frost, the problem is they're janky and they're not well balanced, and they're very often frustrating rather than hard. So all of those things would need a lot of polish, but there's a lot of fun ideas there that absolutely could kind of go into Fallout 5 survival mode, or a very specific hardcore survival themed DLC pack. John, have you ever thought about playing older games like Age of Empires 2 or Command & Conquer games on the channel? Yes, indeed I have. Well, not those particular ones necessarily, but as you've seen from the last month, sometimes I do like just kind of, nipping back in time and picking up classics from a couple of generations ago. Sometimes games like Age of Empires 2 and Command & Conquer make me a bit nervous for the same reason I was talking about Crash Bandicoot and Spyro earlier, which is these are, games that the people who are fans of them know really, really well. Like, really well. And I'm not sure many of them would welcome me coming in and, probably even if I were to, play for a few hours before I recorded to try and get to grips with the basics, I'd still be terrible. It's the reason why I've already made videos on StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2, which is while I'm hardly, great at StarCraft, I'm not exactly, competitive level or anything. I'm not Diamond 1v1, though I was briefly Diamond 1v1 in StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. For one brief period I was, alright? I was not bad at StarCraft 2. I've made videos of them because I know I can play those games and actually say, you know what, I actually know how this works. I know how to set up my units. I know how to play this game. I'm not spectacular, but I'm good enough that people who know the games can actually have a nice time watching this and enjoying the nostalgia. I feel like potentially Command & Conquer and Age of Empires, I might just annoy some people. Age of Empires 2 has come up a few times though, so I wouldn't bet against that at some point. Do you have any favourite pieces from the Fallout soundtracks? Personally, I like What Remains from Fallout 3 and the Institute tracks Imagine Utopia, Humanity's Hope, and Science and Secrecy. I'm not sure if you'd call this a track or consider this a satisfactory answer, but the piece of music that's just simply labelled Exit the Vault, I'm not sure if it's got a formal name, but I just actually checked the game's files, and it's actually called Exit the Vault in the actual game's files. Just the music that plays, about 30 seconds long when you leave the vault in Fallout 3. That's one of my favourite little kind of musical motifs in all of Fallout. The beautiful bit of music that plays in Fallout 3 when you step out of the vault for the first time, even though it's very shy, just at the same time with the sun in your eyes, and then as your eyes adjust, just the ruined actual silhouette of Washington in the distance over the outlook and the ruined town below. Oh, it's just one of my favourite moments in all of gaming, and that little just kind of soundtrack is perfect for it. Do you think eggshells could be used as a building material in the future? I'm gonna be honest, probably not. They've always struck me as not too strong, but what do I know? I've never tried stacking 20 of them together and forming an actual thick layer of them. If you did that, possibly, yes. Agree or disagree? Julianus Vatinius is the greatest emergent character that's ever been on the channel. I disagree, because the Great Britant was technically emergent, because I just kind of made that up as I was going along. I would say Evil John in Fallout 3 Kill Everything, and the Great Britant is my preferred, actually. Because, yeah, the fact that we went into the twist of just kind of role-playing as a British ant supervillain, yeah, that was unexpected. I just made that up as I was going along. And I love that. And, the Great Britain's kind of, stuck around in the popular channel consciousness. So, yeah, I'd actually put the Great Britain and maybe even King Connor from Crusader Kings 2 slightly above Julianus Vatinius, possibly. Hey there, John and Claire, but mostly Tabby. I had a question for John. Having been watching you play games for a bit more than a year now, it seems like you are metagaming an awful lot. Your extensive knowledge of the Fallout universe gives you a big advantage in planning your routes in things like Frost and Dust, and when you're new to a game, you rely a lot on the comments and community to teach you things, potentially before they come up. Even in XCOM, where you ask people not to overwhelm you with new information, you still seem very prepared. Is this how you play any game, even when it's not for the channel? Interesting question. Very, very interesting question. It's mostly done intentionally to try and keep the videos moving along at a decent clip. So, I'll give you an example. Say in the videos over the last 2 days. So in Needs to Know, I actually I played around on the first day for a couple of times because the interface wasn't 100% clear, but it was mostly just me going what? Hang on, wait. Why did that do... Wait, why is that moved over to that box? Wait, what does this tool do? I don't know. So basically I just cut all that. So I was there's 40 minutes from the beginning of that video where I just wasn't quite sure what the hell was going on. That I just cut out. And when we kind of actually join me in the action, so like from your point of view, there's just like a 30-second introduction, then we're straight into, right, so this is need to know, here's how it works. Because I've just spent 40 minutes fluffing around trying to figure out how it works. So you probably didn't want to see those 40 minutes because they don't really teach you anything that I can't basically then go on to summarise in about 30 seconds afterwards. So it just keeps the videos ticking along. 2 Point Hospital. Before the video actually, or rather, well, you see the actual video introduction, then I play the entirety of the tutorial hospital up to 3 stars, then I play the second hospital up to 1 star, and then I start playing the second hospital, and that's where you join me. So there's, I don't even know, maybe like 2-3 hours between the introduction and then the next time you pick up with me, because I wanted to actually like learn and know the game. So there's a lot of missing footage between those 2 times where I'm just basically learning the game. And I do that primarily just because I don't want, like, you know, if I'm going to show you a 40-minute video, I don't want it to be 40 minutes of me going like, right, I don't understand this yet, but I'm just going to read the tutorial text on screen. I just want to kind of, I want to understand it so I can give you a quick summary and we can just dive into it and I can show you it by just doing it in front of you, which is a much more interesting way to learn than just, you know, reading what's actually on like a little tooltip or whatever. So that's kind of why it's not really like, you know, a conscious decision of how I choose to play games. It's more, this is the way I can make the best video for you, I think. And on the topic of like save scumming in general, I generally try like to avoid it if at all possible. Like, if I actually go back to a save, it'll be for a very specific reason. So I can't recall if I've ever done that in the whole of my time like on the Paradox Grand Strategies. I think I did once in Stellaris for the simple reason, and this was like on live stream, so like, you know, I was very open that just happened because I did not understand what the consequences of the choice I was making were going to be because like the tooltips didn't really give you any of that information. So as a result of that, I think I went back on myself once during the Stellaris Utopia live stream, but I was very open about the fact that happened. Like, in general, I only do it if it's a quality of life thing for the viewer. Like, I think about 2 parts ago in Fallout New Vegas Dust, there was a situation where I'd successfully cleared out an area, but I was left with a crippled head, and I didn't have any ability to heal that. Now, a crippled head means, like, you know, on and off for like every 30 seconds for the rest of time, you're going to get that really annoying blurry effect on my vision, and there's going to be the weird ringing in your ears, and that's just going to keep happening over and over again, and it's never going to stop until I just happen to find something that sorts out my crippled head, and that's quite rare in Dust. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to the actual save I dropped most recently, and I'm going to do this again, but I'm not going to get wounded because, okay, fine, it might have been a more authentic experience if I just had to deal with the actual head wound, but also it would have been kind of awful to watch because like maybe anything up to, I think it's maybe like 20% of all the footage thereafter would have had that annoying ringing sound, that annoying blurry effect, and I'm pretty sure most people don't want that. So I use it very judiciously, only when it would improve quality of life, and I mean your quality of life, not mine. I'm wondering if watching a YouTube video sped up impacts your stats or money earnings. Oh, interesting question. I see no reason why it would. No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't in the slightest. Watch away at 1.5 speed, but bloody hell, I thought I just talked fast enough anyway, so good luck listening to me at double speed. What do you eat to have such a good memory? Well, when I was a student, I ate a lot of canned tuna, so I'm going to put it up to the canned tuna. If you had to choose a mascot for the channel, what would you choose? I'm going to go for an egg carton, possibly with Tabby sleeping on top of it. And kind of vaguely connected, what is your Patronus? I'm going to go for a Psyduck. Misty Psyduck to be precise. I always felt a great affinity for that Psyduck. Any plans for the ever hopeful return of Claire in a co-op game? Oh yes. I've got a couple of plans, in fact. Don't worry, I think Claire will be back at some point. The reason why we haven't had Claire for a while is because Claire was on holiday for a fair bit of August. So as a result of that, like, you know, we were trying to get as far ahead as possible before she went, and now we're trying to catch up now she's back. So there's just not really time for us to both take time out of our schedule to sit down and record something. But I am hoping to get something done with Claire soon, yes. Would you consider a Horizon Zero Dawn playthrough? Comic gets pretty good. I think you'd enjoy the story as well. Honestly, no. Like, I just didn't get Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, it was fine. It was decent. But, like, I filed it away in my brain in the same part as, say, Far Cry Primal, which is, this is an alright game that I personally consider kind of forgettable. Like, it's fine when you're actually playing it. You think, oh yeah, there's some nice systems here. I actually kind of liked some of this. This is okay. But, like, after I stopped playing it, I never thought about it again. Like, it just didn't appeal to me for whatever reason. You previously mentioned that the high texture pack for Fallout 4 didn't run so well on your previous rig. With your current system, would you give it another go? Honestly, I'm not desperately impressed by it at all. Like, it's really heavy for what it does. Like, I have at some point, I can't remember when, I did actually at some point install it on my actual current computer. I just find the difference is not that significant, and it's a lot. Like, I think it was like 56 gigs or something stupid. No, it was more than that, wasn't it? It wasn't like 70. I can't even remember now. It was some stupidly high number for a very modest improvement. Like, you can find, like, unofficial texture mods that do a lot better work, potentially, for a lot less actual download size. So, honestly, I'm just not desperately impressed with the high quality texture pack that's actually officially from Bethesda. It's just not great. And a suggestion for Fallout 4 You Only Live Once as well, adding in the rule of no looting. You must buy everything. Interesting idea, except I was actually thinking of going more the other way, actually, which is I'm more and more convinced that I kind of want to do no buying of any actual legendary weaponry, and also no fixed spawns of legendaries full stop. Because, like, you know, the most sensible thing to do would actually be just to, you know, go and buy Overseer's Guardian, go and buy that instigating laser pistol, whatever it's got, to come remember its actual original name now, that you can pick up from Diamond City. Just basically find the money to buy them, and then use them for the rest of the game. Like, that's the most sensible thing to do. And, like, the people who have actually published, like, you know, speedruns for Fallout 4, assuming they're not actually doing, like, you know, just glitched ones where they manage to just fling themselves directly into the final level. Like, when people are doing challenge runs, they're in a hurry. Like, you will see people pretty much always, yeah, go and get Overseer's Guardian. Just go and buy Overseer's Guardian straight away. And that's boring. That's boring that you can just pick up a 2-shot combat rifle and pretty much that will do you for the rest of the game. So I'm thinking of kind of the opposite, in fact. I'm thinking shopping and looting are fine, but no fixed actual legendary weapons. Like, if you get given one as a reward for a quest, for example, like, you know, getting Righteous Authority, you just have to immediately bin it, just like put it in a container, leave it there, never use it again. Break it down for parts. Actually, are you allowed to? I'm not sure you're actually allowed to break legendaries down for parts. I think there's a rule against that, but now I can't remember whether that's just like special one-off ones or if that's all legendaries. I think it's all legendaries, actually. I'm not sure. But anyway, I was thinking more on that variant. That's kind of the direction I'm thinking of going in with that. Hello, John. What states in America would you like to visit and why? Well, I wouldn't mind heading back up to Washington State to just visit Seattle just because I've actually got old friends there. And yeah, I wouldn't mind going to Nevada to actually go and do a little tour of some of the New Vegas landmarks. That's certainly true. So, you said exclude Nevada. Fair enough. I'm just going to say Washington State because I know some people around that area. And also, are the three of you truly that clueless about America and the road trip series, or is it partly for amusement? No, we're genuinely, like, we don't know. Like, I think this is something that's surprising to Americans, because I think Americans, like, are taught, like, what America looks like and how all the states fit together, and don't realise that, like, over in Europe, like, we are never taught any American history. Like, the European education system does not care about America in the slightest. Like, you know, I know where, like, the big state, like, you know, I can put California on a map, and I can say, okay, Seattle and Washington State, and, like, Portland and Oregon are just under there, and, like, Florida's the sticky outy bit, and, like, New York and Washington, D.C. are up in, like, the northeasterny bit, but, like, in the middle, we don't know. No one in Britain knows that. No bloody clue. Where's Kansas on a map? I don't know. I've no bloody clue. Absolutely none. Like, Texas, okay, I could probably put that one there. Vague idea where Virginia and West Virginia are, thanks to, you know, Fallout 76. But, like, you asked me to put, like, Ohio on a map? Nope, no clue. Idaho? No idea. Absolutely none. This does actually seem to genuinely surprise Americans when it gets brought up, because this has actually come up before. I can't remember where, whether it was, like, Twitter or Reddit or something. But, yeah, just the rest of the world, we don't know where your states are. We've absolutely no clue. Wyoming may as well be on the flipping moon for all we know. We don't know. Like, where does the Grand Canyon go? I don't know. It's in the middle somewhere. Where does the actual crack, like, begin and end? So if you drive down, like, the middle of it, where would you begin and where would you end? Absolutely no cocking clue. Alright, pretty good idea what's going on each of the coasts. Broadly. Middle, great big series of question marks. Genuinely, we had no clue. Have you ever considered a playthrough of the Uncharted series? Possibly as like a one-off or a mini-series. I've never kind of considered them like for a proper series just because... wait, how long has it been since anyone's actually asked for it? Yeah, you can kind of figure out roughly how much something's in demand by how many times it gets asked. And I can't remember the last time someone brought up the Uncharted series. So I feel like, it's not something that's in high demand. Maybe as like, a really heavily edited down one-off or a little midweek mini-series at some point, but I'm not sure when exactly. What's the best concert you've ever been to? I'm going to cheat here, because this wasn't really a concert. It was a stage show, but I still want to draw attention to it, because I've just remembered I actually did go to this, and it was amazing. When I was a kid, I got to go to the original Power Rangers stage show, alright? And let me tell you, it was the greatest thing in the world ever. It probably wasn't, but to my young mind at the time, it was literally the greatest show in the world I'd ever seen. It was incredible. And as a result of that, though I've probably been to better stage shows and plays and concerts since, none of them has ever left me feeling so excited and impressed and full of energy as that show has. So as a result of that, I named that the best concert type thing I've ever been to. Oh yes. There was a giant Lord Zed. There was a giant inflatable Lord Zed that was like looming over the stage. It was brilliant. John, would you ever consider playing Conker's Bad Fur Day? Yes. Yes, I would. Because slowly but surely I'm working my way through literally everything on the Rare Replay disc. And that is on there. So yeah, actually, I have been considering that one recently. Expect to see it in the not too distant future. I've also just dusted off a copy of Pokemon Red. Can't decide on a team combination. What do you recommend? Okay, so obviously pick Squirtle, because Squirtle is the best one. After that point, interesting. What to go for after that point? At that point, actually, see how quickly you can rush to the actual Safari Zone. You can get to the Safari Zone pretty quickly, which isn't too difficult to do. All you need to do is, just basically get around to Lavender, use the underground path to cut to Celadon, and then take the cycling path down. You can actually bypass most of the trainers. You can actually get to the Safari Zone pretty early. Then you can get yourselves, a bunch of really cool stuff. Like, get an Execute. Obviously get an Execute. Go for a Rhyhorn. Rhyhorns are cool. If you can catch a Dratini, that shouldn't be too bad. You can just ask the guy for a Super Rod, actually in Fuchsia. So you can actually get a Dratini. Ooh, yeah, Dratini. And then, also, nip back up. Because while you're nipping back up, and actually on the way, you'll be able to grab a Growlithe. So go for Squirtle, Growlithe, Execute, Rhyhorn, and Dratini. Those are my recommendations. May I recommend some of the sillier Fallout 4 mods like 50 Ways to Die at Dr. Nick's? I have no idea what that is. But actually, just a little kind of showcase, just like, multiple mods in a single episode, looking at some of the really small, silly ones. That might be fun at some point. I might do that as a one-off. Would you consider increasing the bitrate you use to record your videos? Because in videos where there's a lot of fast-moving things on screen, like Burnout, it can sometimes get a bit blurry and blocky looking. Fun fact, that's not the video. That's YouTube compression. So I already render my videos at a redundantly high bitrate. My videos are actually, I'm just going to go and check. So I'm going to give you the actual numbers. Yeah, here we go. So the YouTube recommended bit rates are, for 1080p between 8 Mbps and 12 Mbps. Now, I already actually output, render, and then upload videos that are significantly higher than 12 Mbps. But all that happens at that point is it doesn't matter how much extra quality you throw at it, YouTube will still compress it. YouTube will compress it right down and it will introduce the effect that you're looking at. Now, the only way to get around that would actually be to upload videos in higher resolutions. Except I don't have the footage in higher resolutions. I record at 1080p 60 FPS at like a ridiculously high bit. I think like the base bit rate I record at's like, 28, 30. It's something really, really high. Sometimes up to like 50. Which is needlessly high. So as a result of that, yeah, there just wouldn't be much point, because I could just up the quality more and more, but YouTube would just compress it. The only way to add like a tiny bit more quality at this point would be to actually basically move my entire recording setup over to like 4K, and not actually planning to ever really do anything in 4K, but just actually have it so that 1080p looks slightly better. But even then, the difference is really marginal. YouTube will let you have a tiny bit more on the actual bit rate if you go up to 4K, but that would add such a long amount of time to the renders. I don't think it would actually be viable for me. Like, we do so many videos that are so long, like, if we actually increase the bitrate to 4K, one, you'd barely be able to see the difference at 1080p. Like, 1% of people might notice a tiny difference, and two, it would add hours of rendering time in, just because, yeah, it would be a lot larger file and a lot slower to do. So, honestly, I think what you're seeing is a YouTube problem, not really a problem our end. Anything I tried to do in terms of increasing bitrate, YouTube would just basically compress it more to compensate. So, unfortunately, there's not much I can do about it. With school starting up, do you feel your views have changed at all? Bit of an open-ended question there. Do you mean about school? School was fine. School was fine. I had an alright-ish time at school, I suppose. I just mean, like, in general. And if so, over what period of time? I mean, yes, I suppose. I'm 32 now. When I started this channel, I was presumably 27-ish. No, because it was over 5 years ago. I would have been 26. So I guess so. I might need a slightly more structured question than that. Yes, my opinion on things has changed, but some things stay the same. Like, I still consider Advance Wars Dark Conflict to be utter garbage.
Hi, this is Editing Claire. I didn't think your question was confusing at all. I told John that it probably refers to channel views as opposed to his own opinions, which he thought made a lot of sense after the fact. He says to tell you that he hasn't noticed a change in channel views since the new school year.
What sort of snacks do you enjoy nibbling on when you play games or other idle activities? Ooh, this is something I don't do, by the way. Alright, once upon a time, when I was a young man with a young person's metabolism and I could just eat what I wanted and never put on weight, it was beautiful, I would go to Sainsbury's and get one of their tubs of flapjacks from the bakery, and I'd just have that next to me while I played Mass Effect, and I'd just basically eat an entire tub of flapjacks and it would be fine. Now I can't do that anymore, because now I've got a middle-aged person's metabolism, so I can't just snack. So all I ever have next to me when I'm actually playing games or working is just a glass of water, and I just sip on water. That's it. I don't have any snacks. I don't allow myself to eat anything while I'm playing a game. I love the Mass Effect series you've done. They've been fun, entertaining, and funny as hell. That being said, when can we expect to see Mass Effect 3? Well. Let's just say Mass Effect 3 is currently downloaded on my system, and after a bit of work to make it work correctly and get the save files imported, I've been doing some stuff with it. I'm not planning a full series, but I am thinking of doing something with Mass Effect 3, a special. Alright, so watch this space. It's going to take some time to make, but something is already actually in progress there, okay? Okay. This one's actually more of a question, not just to me, but also to the wider community. Someone who is, looking to have a bit of Fallout-style art piece commissioned. So, personally, I've never really had art commissioned, so I can't really give you a recommendation, I'm afraid, for that. But if any of you know any good artists that take commissions and you think could do something fun in the Fallout style, do let us know in the comments down below the actual video on YouTube or under Patreon itself. Yeah, because someone is actually looking for that sort of a recommendation. Have you ever been interested in playing Pokemon on the channel outside of that one clip in the April Fool's Day video? Yeah, I'd love to. I'd absolutely flippin' love to. But Nintendo are dicks and will just, like, they'll slap down restrictions on it. It'll be marked as, probably unavailable in certain countries. And basically Nintendo are dicks. And at this point, like, even though I could probably just say, you know what, screw it, I don't care they're being dicks. I'm just going to let them be dicks and we just won't make any ad revenue off that. And unfortunately, some countries might not be able to see it. That's a bit unfair to the people who probably would live in those countries that it might be restricted in. honestly, like, it's kind of a point of principle at this point. I'm not willing to give, like, the air of publicity to a company that still treats YouTubers with such contempt, which Nintendo absolutely 100% do. So, if Nintendo stop being dicks, yes, absolutely there'll be Pokemon on the channel. I love some of the earlier generations of Pokemon. John, can you pick a song that you think best exemplifies each of the following games or franchises? Okay, some of these I can't help but cheat, because the thing about people who make games and score them is they're very good at their jobs. So very often they've already picked, like, soundtracks that are very, very spot on. So for some of these, I'm literally just going to say the theme that plays on the actual title screen of this game is perfect, which is why it's there. So Stellaris, well, actually, not the theme that's there at the minute. I think it's called Creation and Beyond is the theme on the Stellaris soundtrack. I think is the most Stellaris-y perfect bit of music. It used to be on the actual title screen when the game first came out, but as they've kind of, you know, had more and more DLC packs and introduced more music, now it's not there anymore, which I think is a mistake. Honestly, I think Stellaris will actually be better served still having Creation and Beyond on its title screen, which I think is the best. Crusader Kings 2, again, I'm going to go for its current title screen music, the one where, you know, it starts all quiet. Bum, 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 bum. Just, I love that. I just love also the variety of the Crusader Kings 2. You know, it starts off very quiet, and then, bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, bum. I just love how it just kind of goes nuts out of nowhere. It just kind of, for me, it works perfectly. Mass Effect, again, it's actually, fun fact about Mass Effect, the music that's on the title screen was not originally written as title screen music. The music that's on the actual title screen of Mass Effect 1, I believe it's either called like Ilos or Vigil or something. It was written to basically be the theme of Vigil when you find him on Ilos. That was what it was written for. But at some point they decided to actually just make it the title screen music too. But therefore the name of the track doesn't have some like fancy title, or it's not called like Mass Effect theme or anything. It's just called Vigil. And I think it's really cool because it really captures the feel of Mass Effect. The kind of, you know, it's very quiet, it's spacey, it's wondrous, it's muted and in the background. And it really kind of gets across this big, open, expanding galaxy that Commander Shepard and the Alliance are stepping out into and trying to find their place in during Mass Effect 1. In fact, you know, it was such a good theme, even though it was written as just like, you know, a little bit of incidental music that played alongside a character you were going to meet once and then never again during one mission on Mass Effect 1. It showed up again repeatedly. It actually gets picked up a few times in Mass Effect 3. It comes back. Lots of Mass Effect 1's music actually comes back. Like, the Citadel music from Mass Effect 1 gets recycled in 3. I don't think it does in 2. I think it's just in 3. Like, loads of Mass Effect 1 themes do actually get reutilised in 3 after 2 mostly did its own thing, which is really interesting. Really interesting. I'm going to discuss that in like a video essay at some point. Fallout, actually, I just mentioned something earlier this very video. I mentioned, leaving the vault, the little 30-second little just motif that plays as you leave the vault for the first time in Fallout 3. I'm going to go for that because that's just wonderful. FTL is very, very difficult indeed, but I suppose I'll go for the Lanius theme that got introduced when they released the Advanced Edition, which, yeah, it just feels very sorry, I can't describe it very well. I'm not very musically gifted. Like, if you ask me to explain why I like a piece of music, I struggle because I'm not musical. I've never had any form of musical training, really. So I can't really explain like why I think it's super space inappropriate, but I think like the Lanius theme from FTL is perfect for FTL. As for House Flipper, as that's basically not really got its own score, I'm just going to go for Get Out of the Way, Elephants Are Coming Through Your House Today by They Might Be Giants, because that kind of seems to sum up my approach to how many walls ought to be knocked down in these houses. Did you know that in 2009 a man in South Africa raced the internet against a pigeon to see what was faster at sending 4 gigabytes? The pigeon won. I'm honestly not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. In fact, actually, that sort of thing, you know, it's not just limited to 2009 in South Africa. Like, I read a story very recently about various London firms that still basically use couriers, physical couriers, over the internet for transferring really large files. Like, it's way faster for them to basically just slap the actual data on like a hard drive or a disk or whatever, hand it over to an actual byte courier and have it be cycled across London than it is to actually transfer via any internet. That's always going to be faster if you're sending it to someone in the same city, which is really cool. That's really, really, really cool. Will we get a 7 billion humans live stream? Oh, I wouldn't bet against it. I think that's quite possible, yes. Have you got your eye on the Banner Saga trilogy at all? Yes and no. Which is, yes, I already own 1 and 2. I didn't know it was a trilogy. Is there a third? Is that out yet? I don't know. I thought there was only 2. I didn't have any idea that it was actually a trilogy at all. But I do already own the first and the second. At some point when I've got space for a little midweek mini-series, yes, I feel like it could be excellent. You're right. John, you've said before that YouTube analytics can be very limited. Are you able to tell things such as dislike ratio by country? Ooh, that's interesting. Possibly. I'm not sure if I'll be able to tell ratio. Hang on, let's have a little dig here. Okay, I can see a bar of likes by dislikes as a ratio, but I can't actually arrange by it. Hang on, if I'm allowed to just pull down this data, however, if I just actually export this data, that might work. Okay, Transfusions let me export data, but I can sort of eyeball this for the time being. So, relatively high number of dislikes in general come from, hang on, let's just widen the dataset here so I can actually give, like, you a more accurate read on what's going on here. But yeah, for some reason, analytics is being weird with me today and it's throwing up errors when I ask it to export data. Relatively high dislike ratios. And when I say relatively high, I mean, like, 3%. Because the average seems to be about 2%. Normally it's about 98% likes to 2% dislikes. Like, these people are not, like, hate bombing me or anything. I'm just saying it's higher than 2%. So, for example, we get 4% dislikes to 96% likes, which is quite high on the dislike front from Poland. Poland seems to absolutely hate me, as does, that's Russia at 95% likes to 5% dislikes. Who else is a little bit on the high side? Romania, that's up to 3% dislikes. That's definitely higher than the average. Let's dig down a little bit here, see if we've got... Ooh, Bosnia. Bosnia absolutely despises me. That's another 5% dislike. No, that's 6% dislikes right there. Ooh, that's the worst I've seen so far. Only 94% likes from Bosnia. Oh, hang on. No, sorry. I'm slandering Bosnia. No, that's Malaysia. It's Malaysia that despises me. I'm so sorry. Ooh, there's a bad one. Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is up to... That's 9% dislikes. That's across the entire history of the channel. We've had 758 likes from Kazakhstan to 71 dislikes. So I've done something to upset the people from Kazakhstan. And also Colombia. That's comparable, actually. That's got nearly 10% dislikes. Ooh, Trinidad and Tobago is looking very, very dicey right there. That is 700 likes to 244 dislikes. A like-dislike ratio of 25% dislikes. That might be the worst of all. Let's see if anyone can top Trinidad and Tobago. Not really, no. At that point, we're getting to data that's too small to really count. Like, technically, American Samoa is 50-50. When I say 50-50, there is 1 like and 1 dislike from American Samoa, so I'm not sure we should really count that. So basically, yeah, Trinidad and Tobago, at some point I've done something to really annoy them. When do you think you'll reach 500,000 subs? My money's on 2020 at the latest. I'm hoping, yeah, the end of 2019. That'd be nice. It should be doable. That should be quite manageable, all things considered, if I make decent decisions, because we should definitely hit 400,000 before the end of this year. So I'd like to hit, yeah, 500,000 before the end of next year. That should really definitely be quite doable. John, is there actually a win condition or an end game to Crusader Kings 2? No! Fun fact, there isn't. I think if you play long enough, you do reach an end date. Though, actually, people were saying there wasn't. But I know for a fact there is, like, a range of dates that are supposed to, like, exist within the game. I'm not sure if you're just allowed to go beyond it. There's definitely not like a win condition or anything, or a point where the game says victory like it does in Stellaris. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I haven't really put a huge amount of thought into that yet. I'll just kind of, when the series comes to an end, I'll know. I'll just sort of know. I'll figure it out. But no, I do not have a plan. I do not know where it's actually going to end at this exact moment in time. And a recommendation, Split Second Velocity on the PS3. That one's been recommended before. That one has actually been recommended before. I will give that a look-see at some point. When receiving codes for games you've not heard of, what kind of things would you look out for? What potentially would be a red flag? Ooh, this is a really interesting question. So, this happens all the time. One of my biggest red flags is if I see, hey, this game's coming out on Steam, the Google Play Store, or whatever it's called, and iOS. Like, the moment I know it's going to be a mobile game as well as coming out on Steam, it's pretty much out immediately. Anything that's actually going to simultaneously launch on Steam and a mobile platform, no. You're straight out of the door. On top of that, you'll find in a terrifyingly large number of instances games where there are significant spelling errors on the actual Steam page or in the email. Like, they haven't actually bothered proofreading their own Steam page. The trailer being absolutely flipping awful. Like, it being badly put together. And at some point, I can't remember what it was recently. There was a game recently I watched the trailer for. And literally, like, during the trailer, like, a Steam notification popped up in the corner, like within the trailer. So like when they were recording the footage, a Steam notification just popped up and the person making the trailer was just like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that, like, a notification has just popped up and interrupted this trailer. We'll just put it in anyway. That kind of absolute lazy half-assness. Yeah, there's a lot of things that flag that to me. If it's been tagged as casual on Steam, that's often a bit of a warning that it needs to be treated carefully. That needs to be treated a little bit carefully as a result of that. Generally, a casual game struggles to make it through. That sort of thing. Those things matter a lot, I think. Though as the question goes on in the direction of the fact that you are making your own game, I want to know how best to try and, market and present it. A good thing to do is try and figure out, okay, what is my game somewhat like? And then match it to YouTubers who have covered that game and had some attention and some success. So I think when the need to know people actually contacted me, I'm pretty sure they contacted me rather than me contacting them. They said, oh, we saw that you'd done Orwell. This is a little bit like Orwell. It's like, oh, I loved Orwell. Great. And I think we ranked decently for it in YouTube somewhere or other. So yeah, they actually contacted me and that got me interested in it. Although I think I'd actually heard of it by that point anyway. But that was an example of a really good approach. So just make sure, if you don't happen to be an English speaker yourself, make sure that you actually, you've got someone who is a native or fluent English speaker to properly proofread the page and potentially, ideally, write the copy. Make sure the trailer is slick. Make sure there's no spelling mistakes. Make sure that, if you can, do some form of vaguely personal approach. It doesn't actually need to be truly personal. But you can just write an email saying, hey, insert name here. I saw that, you'd covered Orwell. Well, my game's a bit like Orwell. Here's a key, off you go. And you could send that to 100 people who you found who have played Orwell. So, you could do that as a mass send regardless, potentially. And, something that's very, very important indeed. Like, I don't consider this a deal breaker. I know some YouTubers do, which is if you're emailing someone about your game, do actually include a key. Like, if you get an email where it says, hey, this is my game, here's like a link to the trailer, or whatever, here's what it's about, would you like code? Let me know if you do. I know for a fact certain big YouTubers, if that's an email, they'll just say, no, that's out, I'm not going to do that. Like, if you're going to contact me, you send me a key if you want me to play your game. So, I personally don't. I'm generally happy if I like the look of a game to kind of say, yeah, sure, do send us code over. I know for a fact that will actually get you immediately binned by some other YouTubers. How about you and Dan and Matt try a multiplayer game of Hearts of Iron 4? None of us play it. It's a bit optimistic. It's quite an in-depth game and none of us actually play it. So I'm not convinced that's a starter, I'm afraid. Any updates on Fallout 4 is better than you think? Already quite well planned, but to be honest, it's probably going to come after a video essay about Mass Effect in some form. And I've got thoughts on Mass Effect 1, I've got thoughts on Mass Effect 3, and I'm not sure what order they're going to all come out in, but Fallout 4 is better than you think probably won't happen until after I've done some form of video essay about Mass Effect in general. What's the most hilariously banned thing you've ever played and why? Ooh, I'm not sure this is necessarily the worst game I've ever played, but it was pretty bad. At one point I got code for Guts and Glory, which is kind of like a Happy Wheels ripoff, but in 3D, and I thought, okay, it's not exactly going to change the world. It might make a funny one-off because, if it's got an interesting physics engine, a bunch of stuff you can do, that might sort of work. It's so janky. It was just so janky and broken, and the whole point of that game is it's just a stupid game where you basically fling various comedy characters and vehicles into a bunch of saw blades and they get chopped up. It is, okay, you watch them being chopped up in a funny fashion because the ragdolls and the physics and whatever, but the physics was so janky, there was no real relationship between what you were doing and the result you got. Sometimes you would do two things basically identically and get radically different results. Some of the missions were basically impossible to complete, not because they were hard, but just because, the physics was so janky, it was impossible to predict, like, from what angle and what speed you needed to approach a ramp in order to land on the thing you're supposed to be landing on. It could not have missed the mark further. I played it for like 20 minutes and just thought, this is so catastrophically awful. It's not even good for laughing at, it's just frustrating. It was so bad. Why are your birthday things always so close to my birthday? Well, not to point out the obvious, but once your birthday and my birthday have been close to each other once, they will generally probably continue doing that, yes. Any ETA on the Many a True Nerd coasters? I'm going to be honest, we haven't put work into them for ages. We have not touched those for so long, so I'm afraid I have no idea. John, the military have made you a job offer you can't refuse. What job would you take? Oh, that's easy. I'll just take military intelligence. I'll head over to code breaking. Is there code breaking anymore? If there's not code breaking anymore, let's bring back code breaking. I'll just go and do code breaking. That sounds fun. Time for a big important question. Would you rather have legs as long as your fingers or fingers as long as your legs? I'll definitely go for legs as long as my fingers. Because the thing is, if you've got fingers as long as your legs, then basically your fingers are functionally not going to be able to do anything anymore, are they? They're just going to be constantly... Yeah, you've basically just lost the ability to use your hands. And honestly, I think your hands are more important than your legs. Lots of people live perfectly rich, fulfilling lives without legs. That's absolutely fine. So, you can adjust to being inside various forms of wheelchair or whatever, and still basically I could get on with my life, I could do my job, I could do this. But if basically my fingers are pretty much inoperable at that point, then yeah, I can't really do this anymore. I couldn't interact with just about anything, actually. Yeah, definitely the legs thing. That's actually a pretty easy one for me. Definitely have legs as long as my fingers. Just came here to ask for more Tabby pictures, extra points if it's a video. Ooh, we do have pictures, and I think we might actually have a video floating around. Claire, roll the video that you took of Tabby playing. Yay, we've got pictures of Tabby and also a video of Tabby playing. Oh, she's such a cute little fluffy bug. John, what would be the closest equivalent to ancient Roman cuisine in modern times? Honestly, you don't actually have to look very far. There's a lot of stuff that just seems to have stuck around. Breads and vegetables and meats and olive oils were just staples in Rome. Just, soldiers on campaign with some bread and some beef and some vegetables was just the most common thing in the world. So, arguably, I suppose, the humble modern sandwich is broadly pretty close to one of the staples of Roman cuisine, full stop. There's actually nothing desperately exotic. The Romans liked their seafood. Seafood was considered something quite high class. So there was a lot of seafood brought out at fancy parties. So yeah, shrimps and whatnot tended to show up quite a bit. Yeah, there's actually a lot of stuff that would be very familiar. I think if we travel back in time to ancient Rome, then people would probably be broadly pretty comfortable with the food there. John, whenever someone suggests a game you haven't heard of, you always sound really apologetic. What game have you felt the most sorry about not having heard of? Probably Ape Escape from earlier in this, because I had no idea it was about time-travelling apes trying to catch butterfly nets. Or, wait, I've already forgotten what it was about. Now I'm even more sorry. John, did you know there's a new Games Done Quick event, in addition to Awesome Games Done Quick and Summer Games Done Quick, called Games Done Quick X this year in October? I did not know that. Thank you for letting me know. That's pretty cool. John, I got Crusader Kings 2 a few weeks back when Paradox had the game for free. I'm struggling to get going in the game, however, as I'm playing it like Stellaris, rushing to conquer. Any tips for a new player? Oh, I'm not sure I should try and give tips. The people who actually know the game are going to yell at me if I try and give you tips. I personally think it's not so interesting to just basically go on a great big conquer rush. I think it's more interesting to just kind of pay a lot more attention to families. I mean, I just like role-playing it. I just like role-playing it and paying attention to family dynamics and whatever. Right at the beginning, people were asking really early, why are you paying so much attention to trying to find nice wives for your chancellor? It doesn't matter. You've just invited him. He's not part of your dynasty. He's just a random person in your court who's never going to affect your dynasty. It's just I just want him to have a nice wife. I just want, I've invited him here. He's moved from a country from the other side of the world. I want him to have a nice life while he's here, alright? So I just role-playing it and micromanaging every single aspect of every single little marriage and stuff like that. And yeah, I suppose probably, rather than trying to rush to conquer, maybe instead rush to maneuver yourself into having favours to call in and potentially start seeing if you can get yourself positioned as the ruler of an empire you're part of. So if you're just a little vassal count or a duke, see if you can actually get yourself made king on succession without having to conquer at all. I personally find that's more fun and interesting anyway. I hope one day you'll play some Mount and Blade. Oh yeah, that's one of the games that comes up more than any other, so that will totally happen at some point in the not too distant future, because that one gets brought up a lot. You recently said in the July Patroncast that there was a lot of cut footage from Driver San Francisco. Oh, there was. But honestly, it was mostly me just crashing into cars over and over again and not actually playing the game sensibly. Sadly, it's already been deleted. As a general rule, once I've actually published a video live and I've verified there's no problems with it, there's no visual glitches, there's no audio bugs, I delete the original footage, because the original footage can be easily 60, 100 gig. So, that fills up space on the computer pretty fast, even with terabytes of storage on an HDD. So I do actually delete the footage. So sadly, I cannot release it. I'm very sorry. John, have you made any plans for the not too far away 400k subscriber special? I haven't. I've no idea. I'll need to come up with something special. With the new semester coming up, any advice for returning or new uni students? Ooh, returning I'm not sure, because that's really going to depend on what university and what topic or whatever. New is interesting. New is interesting because, again, it's very difficult for me to kind of provide general advice to everyone, because people approach university in lots of different ways. I struggled with university at first. I found it a bit of an intimidating place. Absolutely, I did. I kind of struggled to get into the rhythm of things. And looking back now, I think the mistake that I made was I had this not really romanticized. I had this idea of what uni should be. From television ideas and books and whatever. People should go to these wild parties and fling themselves into all these new sexy ideas and whatever. And I realised that this was a lot later I realised this was years down the line, I actually came to this realisation. I hadn't been approaching this with an open mind, just thinking what I find here and what I like here and what makes me comfortable here, embrace that. Do and stick with the stuff that, you want to stick with and build something that works for you. I was just kind of constantly measuring myself up and thinking, oh my god, I'm not going to the sexiest parties, I'm not going to the loudest clubs, and I'm not getting as drunk as I should do or something. Oh no, why am I failing at being a student? And I don't know, maybe that was just me, maybe that's a really stupid thing. But if you feel nervous and you feel as a new uni student, if you feel like you're not fitting in, just try to approach it on your own terms. Try not to have a preconceived notion of what university should be, and then, risk feeling like you're failing if you don't fit into that. I'll say that much. You also kind of followed up by saying, yeah, your university has recently dealt with strikes, and I'm curious if you ever had to deal with such things. Not that I recall. I don't recall any major strike action when I was at university, and also I'm not sure who's on strike, whether it's the actual tutors and the teachers and the lecturers, or whether it's I don't know, other staff at the university. So I guess it kind of depends. Or maybe it's the students. Sometimes students go on strike. I forget that. Doesn't really happen so much in the UK, but where students very much do go on strike in France. Claire's mentioned stories to me about that sort of thing. So that I'm afraid I have no advice to offer. You also asked as a follow-up what games you found to be best to play while you're listening to podcasts and what your favourite podcasts are. I personally don't really listen to podcasts. I know for a fact that Claire enjoys playing a little Sims 4 and listening to podcasts and whatever at the same time. So I'm going to hand over to Editing Claire. She'll give you some recommendations for podcasts because I can't.
Ooh, favourite podcast. Now, I've answered this one a few times on previous Patroncast, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. One I don't think I've talked about before is The Infinite Monkey Cage. This is a BBC podcast that's all about science. It's hosted by Professor Brian Cox, who's an astrophysicist, and Robin Ince, who's a comedian. They bring in panels of really cool guests, talk about science. I find it really accessible myself. I've not done much science past high school at all, but I understand what's going on. And crucially, it's very, very funny.
Please could we have you and the Nerd Cube lot and potentially other Matt play a couple of games of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds? I'm going to be honest, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds was not really my thing. I played it for a little bit, I just didn't get into it. I had a nicer time playing Fortnite. I just enjoyed Fortnite a lot more. So I doubt that's going to happen, I'm afraid. But at some point, some big survival or battle royale team up thing, that might be fun. I'll keep it in mind. John, first of all, thanks for playing Unirob's music in your streams. I'm his brother and he's been pretty chuffed about it. Oh, that's very nice. Thank you for letting me know that. I'm glad he's chuffed about it. Have you ever read any of the Percy Jackson series or any other books by Rick Riordan? I'm afraid I've not. I'm afraid I never read those. I think they might have possibly been a little bit after my time. I'm not sure. Maybe, actually, I'm not sure when they were written. But they certainly, if they were around, they weren't, really popular. When I was, of the age, I might probably want to read that sort of thing. But, I do like the fact that, obviously, anything that's built around Greek and Roman mythology, and there's a lot of that present, that's good. That's generating the next generation of classicists right there. For the Crusader Kings 2 video, is there a place you went to try and wrap your head around inheritance rules, titles being passed on, etc.? Well, one, that depends if you think I've already got my head around, because I think, even as recently as the most recent video, I still get confused about bloody Gavelkind. I've totally been getting a bit confused between Gavelkind and elective Gavelkind, because bloody hell. But I think I just kind of, after I played the first few parts, I just went and I read the Crusader Kings 2 wiki, and I just kind of read that back to front until I kind of vaguely had an idea, and then I loaded up a different save file and just played around with some ideas until I got at least the basics down. So the wiki's a good resource. Try the wiki. Would you ever play any of the Broken Sword games on your channel? Honestly, I know very little about them. I've heard of them, but I don't know much else. So, according to you, humour and playstyle would really suit you. I shall give them a look-see, but I don't really know anything about them, so I can't give you any promises. I have a question regarding Claire's working hours, since she both works for you and lives with you. Does she work regular hours during the day, then relax in the evening, or is it not so strict? Claire's basically on flexi time, which is she has a certain number of hours she has to do during the week, and honestly, as long as they get done, I don't really care where or when they fall. So Claire can basically just choose to lay out her days as she wants. Take her 2 weekend days any day of the week as is convenient, which obviously means she's around on Saturday or Sunday whenever we do the live streams, but mostly Saturday. So yeah, Claire's basically got a contracted number of hours that she just fulfills as she wishes with flexi time. John, I'm getting married the day after Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out. Then I leave for my honeymoon. What should I do? Okay, what you should probably do is take your Xbox One X with you, okay, together with a TV and battery packs or whatever for all of them. Get it set up in the bathroom, and then just fake stomach troubles, because then you'll just be able to sneak off and just be able to go and play Red Dead Redemption 2 for a while, for a few hours at a time. Just remember to make a case you're just slightly playing noises over at the door, just to kind of keep the story legit. Okay, then you're all absolutely fine, and then, you can both enjoy your honeymoon, and you can play a bit of Red Dead Redemption 2. Though apparently you would like the same question to be answered by Editing Claire, who I'm sure will have the same advice as me.
Ooh, I'm not sure what to say to this one, aside from don't do what John says. Just don't, never. Now, hopefully, if you're getting married, your future spouse knows how important video games are to you, but if they don't yet, just tell them how important video games are to you. That's an important part of your life. That's completely valid and acceptable, that you would be really, really, really excited about this game coming out. Just let them know, and they might say that it's unreasonable for you to want to play video games on your honeymoon, which is probably a bit fancier than other holidays you might go on. But you could always take a little bit of time off after your honeymoon, just take a few days to play the game, and that also is a completely okay thing for you to do.
What are some games that you have your eye on? Oh, not for a while, just have my eye on. Okay, what else is floating around at the minute? Just some little things. I'll give you an example of some little things that are just kind of floating around soon. So I mentioned the occupation earlier. Claire also flagged a fun thing to me recently. Posable Heroes. That's coming up in the not too distant future, where basically, as far as I can tell, it looks like you almost program a puppet to try and go through an action scene. It looks really cool. It's a weird sort of programming a puppet game. It looks fun. It looks very, very interesting indeed. That's a decent example of something that's coming up soonish. Would you consider doing an Overland live stream? Possibly. Hang on, I just need to check what the state of Overland actually is. Here we go, I just wanted to check. So right now, yes, I just got an early preview of Overland. So absolutely, I think Overland would be an excellent candidate for a live stream when it actually comes out. Because right now, the actual game is just listed as some point in 2019. Now, I think it was pretty darn decent in its current form. So 100%, when it actually hits an actual launch, you will see it again. Quite possibly as a live stream. That's probably a good format for it. Are you interested in the new Spider-Man game? Yes, actually. Even though I don't have, Dan's level of love for the original Spider-Man 2, it does look pretty darn good. So yeah, I'll be giving that a look, see if I can get a review code for that. Good afternoon, John, Tabby and Claire. What's your opinion of Tom Scott? Nice guy. Nice guy, actually. In fact, fun fact, not if I heard of him, I was almost in one of his videos. I think maybe about a year ago or something. Maybe a bit more than that, actually. He did, some sort of, game show type thing where people played simple games against each other, where it's one YouTuber and one musician and one juggler or something. I forget, I can't remember the name of it now. I was the reserve player for that, so if anyone had been forced to drop out, I would actually have stepped in and done that. And I think I almost was, because Emma Blackery, who was on it, arrived late. So had Emma Blackery not been able to attend or been too late, I would have had to step in to actually take her place. So yeah, I actually met Tom Scott, nice guy, and I was almost on one of his things at one point. I've just begun a 3-month trip around Europe, and I've just actually landed in Edinburgh a couple of hours ago. Wonder if you had any recommendations for places to visit within the UK. I'm afraid I can't really give you recommendations for Scotland. I've only been to Scotland a handful of times, often just as a flying visit. A friend of mine got married in Edinburgh, so I nipped up there for that. But I do not know it well enough to actually pass forward any recommendations in that regard. In terms of particularly nice cities, both Oxford and Cambridge are really nice cities to visit, just in terms of the architecture and all the colleges and all the college gardens. London, with the free museums and the galleries, is, obviously a pretty clear candidate. I've heard very nice things about Bristol. I personally have only been a couple of times, but I have heard that Bristol's a lovely place with lots to actually kind of look around and see, and a really good history to it as well. Yeah, I'm not so much of a traveller, to be honest, so I'm not great at finding travel recommendations because I don't travel much myself. But I would definitely say good things about all of them. Book question for John or Claire. What are your favourite fantasy series? I am going to go for Robin Hobb's Untitled Fantasy series, because I actually just went to look in the cover of the book to see if it actually has an overall name, but it doesn't. They're divided into trilogies. There's the Farseer trilogy and the Live Ship trilogy, but they don't actually have an overall name. She never actually gave the whole thing a name. So Robin Hobb writing about boats and assassins and stuff. Basically, I'm going to say that, because I loved those. I just inhaled them. Claire gave me the first one. I thought, yeah, it was alright. And then I read the second one, it was really good. And then I just kind of inhaled the rest of them. And these are big books. Some of them big hardback books with, I think one of them goes to nearly 1,000 pages. And I just inhaled them so bloody quickly. So readable, such page turners. Absolutely adored them. So I'm going to go for that. Although I suspect this is going to be a difficult one for Claire to name just one favourite fantasy series.
Ooh, that's really hard to say, because fantasy is such a wide genre in terms of the tone and the scope and the epicness that you can find in fantasy. For an epic fantasy that I love, something that's serious and has got so many layers of meanings and is so clever and interesting, I would have to say the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin is something that, when I read it, I was so impressed, because it's really complex and the world building is really beautiful, but it really makes sense. It's also quite grim and has a lot of body horror in it, so I love that aspect of it as well. But I also love much more light-hearted fantasy, like the Encrypted series by Sean McGuire is something I've absolutely loved this year. I completely inhaled that series. It's about a family of cryptozoologists. They're conservationists that basically look after cryptids and creatures that other people might call monsters, and it's so fun. There are various books about the various siblings in the family, and there's a lot of short fiction that focuses on the family background as well, so that's another one where there's so much world building to dig into, and I love that aspect of it.
There's been a lot of driving on the channel this month with F1, a couple of Burnouts, and the Magnificent Crew 2 collab. What brought that on? I just sometimes have, little fads. Right now, I just happen to be enjoying driving-related games, and actually, we've got a fair few kind of vaguely survival-y things coming up. I've been enjoying survivally things recently, so these things they just come and go in waves, really. Does Claire play driving games? No, I don't think Claire would enjoy driving games. I'm not sure she actually played much in the way of them, but Claire likes her games like, nice and turn-based or something like that. I'm pretty sure a high-speed racing thing would not be Claire's speed. In a recent Crusader Kings 2 video, you talked about how the start of the Iliad talks about Achilles' rage or wrath. The version I studied in classic spells Achilles is Achilles, that's just the Latinized version. Achilles is close to the Greek, Achilles is the typical Latinized version. And talks about his anger, not rage or wrath. Same basic idea, menin is the word. I think anger's not really quite strong enough for menin, to be honest, but yeah, that's just a matter of the translator's personal preference. This got me thinking about different translations of the Iliad. I was wondering, what's your favourite translation in particular? Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Like, as someone who studied it myself, I made my own, but in terms of, my personal favourites, it kind of depends what mood you're in. Because some of them are very prosaic and very readable. I personally find Martin Hammond is quite good for just a very good, simple, readable, but still, quite close to the text version of the Iliad. But, sometimes Robert Fagles is quite good, though it's a little bit harder to follow, because it kind of vaguely tries to be a little bit on the poetic side as well. So, personally, I think Martin Hammond's probably my favourite, if I'm not allowed to just, nominate myself, because that would be the height of vanity. And a follow-up question on the Odyssey and the Aeneid as well. Aeneid, actually, I will go back to Fagles. I think Fagles actually does do a better job with the Aeneid than the Iliad, just in my view. So I'd probably go for Fagles for Aeneid. For Odyssey, I've never actually found a translation I enjoy for the Odyssey, to be honest. I just have my own. So it's probably buried in a box somewhere. But yes, sorry, I do prefer my own for the Odyssey. Does Tabby ever meow, or is she a quiet cat? She doesn't really meow, but as it gets closer and closer to mealtime, she'll make a little kind of noise. When she's just kind of, she's been disturbed, she wants attention, there'll be a little and it'll kind of go from a little kind of a rolling purr into the end of a meow. We never actually get a full meow, we just kind of get a that's kind of a Tabby noise. That's my best impression of Tabby right there. You mentioned last time that you did some research on Christmas traditions. I just want to know which one of the Icelandic Yule lads is your favourite. Oh, I know all about the Yule lads. The Yule lads in Iceland are just flipping magnificent. And you're right, Doorway Sniffer is an excellent one. Although I always had a little bit of a preference for Sausage Swiper. It's just beautiful. This is a tradition in Iceland, by the way, that there's these dwarves who do weirdly specific things. Like they steal your sausages or they sniff your doorway. It's very, very weirdly specific, and they're kind of cool. I like them. It's a very, very cool little tradition. And here's what I was half expecting. A question after Fallout New California. I really hope I do have the chance to squeeze it in. I think arguably it might make a little bit of a mistake trying to actually basically launch at the same time as Fallout 76, when, the biggest Fallout creators who might be able to get it the most attention are, going to be a bit on the distracted side. If I were them, I might just say, you know what, we'll just push back into early 2019 and just use a bit of extra time for extra polish and whatever, but I hope I've got time to look at it. But honestly, if it clashes with 76 is going to take priority over it. John, did you ever actually get to the end of Avery Attorney in your spare time? I didn't actually. Avery Attorney was one of the biggest disappointments in the entire history of the channel. I was expecting that to be really popular, and so few people interested. And then I think we did a second part, there were only 2 parts total, and so few people bothered watching the second part. It was so disappointing. So, sadly, that definitely can't come back in any capacity. I never actually finished it myself either. So, at some point I may go back and look at it, but honestly, I'm struggling for time on occasion. Sometimes I don't have that much free time. So, at some point I may do, but I'm afraid I never actually did. And thank you again for some recommendations on some classical music for me to listen to later. I just gave a quick listen to both of them. I think, Beethoven's Piano Concerto No. 5 Emperor sounded very, very nice indeed. I shall have that on later when I'm doing some more quiet stuff. What kind of changes would you like to see in Stellaris? Big one, fix governors in sectors. Because right now, it's kind of weird, when you're done with a planet, you want to just have a new planet, you just basically dump a planet into a sector. But sector governors play by really weird rules, which is obviously, everyone in the galaxy has a limit to the number of core systems they're allowed, but not sector governors. They don't. They just seem to be allowed to have basically infinite planets in a single sector, and it doesn't cause a problem. and you can tax them 75% of everything forever, and they never complain in the slightest, and sector governors never contact you, they never really want any direction, and they, never at all, ever rise up or anything, which is odd, because, at various points, I look back at my old save files and think, the sector governor, assuming he's directly controlling all the systems I've put into the sector, he's actually got way more strength than me. In terms of the actual fleet contribution, he's producing the vast majority of my fleet strength, and he's generating vastly more money than my core systems are. Shouldn't I be needing to do something to placate him? Shouldn't he be agitating to have his tax rate lowered below 75%? Shouldn't I need to keep him happy and keep an eye on his loyalty? I think that really needs to be done. Because, I think there needs to be a system more like some form of vassals and loyalty and keeping an eye on your sector governors. Because right now, you just basically dump a system into a sector and you never worry about it again. You just get 75% of its income for the rest of time. And that's a bit uninteresting. I think we need to do better. How come none of the Crew 2's videos are on Matt's channel? Honestly, just because Matt's channel was kind of, very small and doesn't have much in the way of gameplay footage on it. So we just kind of said, okay, we'll just divide it between me and Dan, because Matt isn't currently trying to grow or maintain a gaming channel. But, me and Dan are, so we just said, okay, we're just going to have the footage there. Plus, Matt, as part of the NerdCube family, really kind of, in some ways, the half of videos that are going to Dan are going to both Dan and Matt, because Matt does a lot of work on stuff that ends up on Dan's channel, which is exactly what happened here. But, you're right, there could have been an argument for that, and the next time I do something with Up Is Not Jump, absolutely, we'll split it up so some of that's on his channel as well. In fact, we're already in discussions about something. John, with lots of huge games coming out in the next months right after each other, Life is Strange 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Fallout 76 Beta, Hitman 2, how will this affect the channel schedule? Basically, I'm going to panic and scream a lot. It's going to be insane, but it's going to be wonderful, because all of those games you mentioned, I'm really looking forward to, and I think they're going to be really cool for different reasons. It's going to be a bit mental. As soon as those big games start landing, yeah, I think now until December is going to be crazy busy. It's going to be crazy busy. Hey John, how's you? I'm good. How's Tabby? She is sleeping. How's Claire? Hopefully fine. I checked in with her earlier. She seemed to be okay as well. Do you read many of the comments people leave on your videos? I try and read all of them as best I can. The problem is that YouTube doesn't really help with that, because YouTube creates a comment nesting system. So, if someone makes a comment and someone else replies to it, that nested comment lives underneath where the original comment was, because there's a comments tab I can access backend that is basically every single comment. But it arranges them chronologically, and any comments that appear under a comment are chronologically put under the point where the original comment was made. So it's quite possible I miss threads on occasion, and sometimes if I have to do things like the live streams, or I've got a couple of busy days, I might fall behind with the comments. I do what I can to try and read every comment, but unquestionably some are gonna get missed, because there's still only one me, but as time goes on, there's more and more comments. Fallout 3 is better than you think, has 20,000 comments on it. More than 20,000 now. It's ridiculous. I can't read all of them. I can try and keep up as best I can, so I try and read as much as I can, but sometimes some of them are unquestionably going to get missed, just because there isn't really a perfect solution for how to present them in a way that they can be easily digested. Is Fallout New Vegas Dust less frustrating than Fallout 4 Frost? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. In some ways, it's actually more frustrating because it's less polished and less well balanced, because clearly lessons that were learnt from Dust were applied to Frost. And Frost being a bigger and more open game, just because the landscape that Bethesda likes to create tends to be bigger, more open, it gives you more options to go anywhere and do anything. Whereas New Vegas's landscape is relatively quite small, with a lot of impassable cliffs and whatever. So therefore, it's a little bit more kind of, a series of, wide and open, but still kind of like corridors where you're being shuffled in particular directions. So there's lots of impassable terrain floating around. So if the game wants to set up an impassable barrier, it's easier for it to do so. I think the tunnelers were maybe a little bit overkill, but that might also be an error with their perception, where they become more aware of you when you start sneaking and can see through flipping stealth boys. But now I've modded that out, I think it'll be a lot more reasonable. So in some ways, yes, in some ways, no. And which do I prefer, Dust or Frost? Interesting. They're very different. They're very different. I mean, I like the flow of Frost, where you start off having no choice but to use melee because there's basically just no guns and no ammo anywhere. So you start off having to learn melee, and like the very first gun you find is such a big deal. And finding like any water whatsoever is like a huge deal, and any food whatsoever is a huge deal. Like starting in the tunnels and like getting yourself set up in the tunnels is really cool. That's actually a really good starting point. And then, like, you know, you come out onto the surface and you need the gas mask, you need to start scavenging, and you start figuring stuff out, and there's stuff underground and stuff overground. I think I prefer Frost, and I think it just shows that, like, you know, a lot was learnt from Dust that kind of formed the foundation of Frost. So, yeah, I'd say Frost is the more polished product, but that's kind of to be expected. Would you recommend the Jay Sawyer mod for New Vegas? Yeah, absolutely. Every time. Honestly, I just think Jay Sawyer is pretty much the game as it should be. Like, you know, Josh Sawyer is a very, very clever person who clearly had to make certain decisions far too quickly to make New Vegas actually get out on its actual release schedule. Like, the changes he makes are, I'd say, pretty universally good ones. I don't really look at anything in it and think, oh, I wish he hadn't changed that, that's made it worse. Like, you know, some of them are very, very modest tweaks, but they're cool, they add variety, they add challenge. They're good things. They're very, very good things indeed. In addition, do you think a highlight character like you made towards the end is good to players if you've never played New Vegas before? Honestly, not so much. Highlight characters are really good in New Vegas, like, once you know where the casinos are and how to access them, and, like, you know, you immediately try and get to them as quickly as possible to make a ton of money so you can buy some really cool gear. For a beginning starter character, just go for a basic, well-balanced character. Probably put up your endurance and intelligence. Intelligence will help you become a better character faster, and endurance will just keep you alive. For, like, a new character, someone who's never really played New Vegas before, I'd say, yeah, a balanced character with a skew towards intelligence and endurance. Can you start ending your videos with your trademark, okay, bye? No. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Too much. I couldn't just basically start ending videos with, okay, bye. Though, admittedly, I do occasionally like the odd video that has, like, a cold open and a cold close. Like, I really like that NerdCube these days doesn't really do, like, standardized openings and outros. Like, pretty much everything Dan does is cold opens and cold closes. And I do the very occasional cold close, and I quite like that. I quite like ending on, like, a snap joke and whatever, rather than kind of wrapping up. I should probably do a bit more of that. I was thinking at one point I want to do a bit more of that. Hi, John. Thank you for being awesome. You're very welcome. Thank you for Super Meat Boy. Well, you're very welcome too. It was a good suggestion. Happy belated birthday. Oh, thank you. What are your 10 most... Oh, 10 most underwatched videos. Okay, I'm not sure I can come up with 10 off the top of my head, but I just mentioned Avery Attorney. That's certainly one. Oh, bloody hell. Right. Go back through the calendar. I'm just going to kind of pick out some videos that I think kind of weirdly underperformed versus what I thought they were going to do. Ooh, Warbitle. I remember Warbitle. I thought was actually a really fun video, but didn't actually get much in the way of views. That's certainly true. Part 2, The Starving Artist. That was a really fun video. It did okay. It did okay if I recall correctly. But I was expecting that one to be actually quite a big deal that people would really remember as a bit of a classic, but it did not really happen so much. Ah, Yoku's Island Express, that pinball Metroidvania thing. Yeah, that was a damn good video, and that didn't really get much in the way of views. That was sad. And I tell you what, when I did Forgotten Am was beautiful and wonderful, and I loved it. But yeah, that did not get much in the way of views either. Right, I've been back quite a few months over that. That'll do. That'll do. Those are some videos I thought kind of underperformed versus what I was hoping for. Your jellyfish fear popped up again in your recent The Universum video. Do you have any particular experience with jellyfish that spawned this fear? It's just one of those irrational fears. It's not irrational. They're weird and alien. They don't have faces or backbones or anything. They're very, very weird looking. Okay, because, like, you know, you can look at a dog and, like, I've got a nose and he's got a nose, and I've got 2 eyes and he's got 2 eyes, and I've got a mouth and a tongue and teeth and he's got all of that stuff too, and, like, I've got 4 limbs and he's got 4 limbs and whatever, and, like, both of us have, like, hearts that pump blood, and we're, like, warm, and we live on the land. Like, you know, me and a dog have a lot in common. Like, we get each other. But a jellyfish is just a weird thing. Like, even like a fish, I can look at a fish and think, okay, you've got eyes and a mouth. Like, you know, I understand how you're a living creature. But a jellyfish is just a terrifying, translucent, stinging murder machine that, like, just floats around and just stings things, and it doesn't seem to have any form of recognizable... No, I don't like them. I'm going to stop talking about them now too. Speaking of board games, you even got anything from Red Raven Studios? I don't know. I'm going to go and have a little look-see at their full game list now. Nope, unfortunately, best as I can tell, I have never played a single board game from that studio. Sorry. How was the response from the Bad North devs after that stream? Actually, really, really calm and whatever. They didn't seem to mind the slightest. They were just like, yeah, don't worry, it's cool. Feel free to live stream. They said that not only was the live stream fine, they'd be okay with us doing it again. So it was absolutely fine in the end. Will we get a Switch if the next Pokemon game turns out to be amazing? Honestly, I'm not sure. Like, even if the next Pokemon game is really good, like, I heard really good things about the last 2 generations of Pokemon game. I heard good things about X and Y. I heard good things about Sun and Moon, but, you know, I didn't actually go out and get anything to actually play either of them. And, you know, I've heard very, very good things about Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, and I didn't run out and get a Switch for them. So, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Like, you know, I play a lot of games, like, while I'm just trying to make videos. For the most part, when I'm not actually playing games for videos, I just want to chill out and, like, you know, read some books or, you know, watch a bit of TV. I don't play a huge amount of games in my spare time because, you know, often I just want to read because I just like to, you know, give my hands and my eyes a bit of a rest from that sort of thing. What are the chances that we can get a bonus episode of Crusader Kings 2 when the series finishes, where you go back through all the kings, listing all their accomplishments and infamous quirks? Well, obviously. Yeah, absolutely. I was already kind of thinking that whenever it does end, a cute little epilogue where we go through the whole timeline would absolutely be something I'd like to do. Now you're quite a bit into it, are you finding Crusader Kings 2 more entertaining than Stellaris? Hard to say. They both have really good things about them, and Stellaris is still evolving very fast. They're about to do a big planetary rework, and there's going to be, at some point, you know, they're going to sort out politics and espionage a bit more. Clearly, trade's coming in. We don't know what that really looks like yet. You know, Stellaris is evolving very, very quickly indeed, whereas Crusader Kings 2 is, well, they've actually openly admitted it's nearly the finished product. They've said, okay, there's only so much more we can add in before we have to go over to Crusader Kings 3, just because, you know, it's already full up at this point. There's already too many systems that we've added in through... Sorry, too many is not the right term. But there's a lot of systems they've added in where they can't just keep plugging more and more and more and stuff on top. They have to just kind of go back and start something again in order to actually fit in new, exciting, sexy ideas to avoid them clashing with ideas they've already put in. So... absolutely. Playing Crusader Kings 2 has flagged to me things that Stellaris doesn't do. Like, you know, the reason why sector governors are bothering me a bit in Stellaris right now is because I've seen how well and how interesting you deal with controlling vassals in Crusader Kings 2. And, you know, like, the personality of your own rulers is much more interesting and exciting in Crusader Kings 2 than it is in Stellaris. But equally, Stellaris does some really fun stuff. Like, you know, I have a much more fun time building a planet, and with the planetary rework, that's going to be even more so in Stellaris than I do with upgrading castles or towns or whatever in Crusader Kings 2, where it's actually fairly boring for the most part. In terms of combat, I think Stellaris is a lot more interesting, especially now they've added, like, the environmental hazards, and now we've got, like, the hyperlane network, where you can also do the jumps if you want to, but that gives you a massive debuff, so you've got to be careful. But there's also the different stars with different environmental hazards, and, you know, you can fit out ships with different combat behaviors, and you can fit them out with different weapons, with different ranges, and go, like, more for, you know, staying at the back with artillery, or swarming forwards, and try and maxing out evasion, and stuff like that. I think Stellaris combat is a lot better than Crusader Kings 2 already, and will probably get even more so as time goes by. I think both of them have really good things about them. Probably on balance, I think Crusader Kings 2 is the better game, to my mind, but only because, like, you know, it's a bit unfair. Crusader Kings 2's been out and been, like, you know, improving itself for, what, 6 years? Was it 2012 it came out originally? Meanwhile, Stellaris is still only a year or two or whatever old and still having basic reworks done to it. So it's not really a fair comparison, but both of them do different things really, really well. Question about France for Claire. In France, they translate brand names to French like they do in Quebec. Ooh, interesting question. Claire, go ahead.
You know, I think they don't. You mentioned KFC in your question, and I've definitely been to a KFC in France before that wasn't translated at all. Sometimes stuff is pronounced in what we think of as anglicized ways, like Nike isn't pronounced with a French I, which would be E, and that doesn't make much of a change, I suppose. But then you've got stuff like Whiskers, the cat food brand, like in French it's pronounced Whiskas, and also the word for a cat's whiskers in French is not whiskers, so the whole pun is completely lost. It's just a cat food brand with a weird name for no reason.
If Claire were to prank you by waking you up in the middle of the night, would you say that many a true nerd has been awoken in jest? Probably later I would, yes. At the time I'd probably just be mildly annoyed. Which two historical figures would you like to introduce to each other? Oh, can I kind of do this with like time travel stuff? Can I introduce like late era Julius Caesar to late era Augustus? Because they did actually, of course, know and meet each other in real life. But, Augustus was Octavian at the time and he was a lot younger. Can I actually have old Julius Caesar meet old Augustus? Because that would be kind of fun, just to get Julius Caesar's take on what actually Octavian went on to do after Julius Caesar was gone. That would be fun. I'd like to hear that conversation. John, Mass Effect Andromeda is the only game I've ever given a special ambivalence award to, as I both really love it and really hate it. Is there any game you both really enjoy and really hate at the same time? I wouldn't quite say that. I can't think of a good candidate for that. But what I will say is, a game that I really love, but I can't really figure out why, is House Flipper. I absolutely adore House Flipper, but if you just look at it on paper, it looks scruffy. It isn't desperately well optimised. It doesn't exactly run very smoothly. The amount of furniture that's available isn't exactly spectacular right now. There's a lot of restrictions on what you can and can't do. The way that rooms get divided up is a little bit counterintuitive. Things just clip through other things all the time. But I just love it. I just love it absolutely anyway. And I feel like on paper, like it's a brilliant idea that I look at the execution and just think this shouldn't be fun. Like I should be looking at this and thinking this is a really good idea. It's a shame it needs a lot of work yet, but I don't. I look at it and think, oh my goodness, this is amazing and I could play it forever. It's just crack in game form. And I don't quite know why, but it's just wonderful. Will you be running the most scientifically accurate simulator of real-world politics known as Worms Armageddon for the US midterm elections? I wasn't planning to, because I don't really know, any of the candidates, so I couldn't really provide funny commentary, because I wouldn't know who any of the people standing were. So I was actually planning to. I generally bring that out only at, presidential or general elections for the US and the UK. John, besides editing the video, do you ever go back and watch any of the videos you create? And if so, which are the ones you tend to watch the most? The collabs. I actually go back and watch the collabs. I recently rewatched the entirety of me and Matt doing Euro Truck Simulator, which is 2 hours long. And I think it's genuinely brilliant. It's one of the favourite collabs I've ever done. And we just kind of did it at the fly on a random evening. Matt was just at a loose end. He just invited me to come and do this. And we just did it with no planning whatsoever. And I think it's just brilliant. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant video. John, is there an old classic movie you saw as a child that you fell in love with, but watching it as an adult you realise it's not very good? Ooh. I can't quite answer that, but I'm going to answer a very similar question, which is a movie I saw when I was a student and just thought, this is the greatest film in the world ever. And then, saw a couple of times after and just thought, oh, actually, I may have slightly, overhyped that. With Nell and I thought With Nell and I was absolutely amazing when I saw it as a student. It was brilliant, and me and all my friends, we loved it. Watched it again since. It's not that great. I mean, it's okay. It's got its moments, and some people put in some decent performances, but it's also just a bit all over the shop. It doesn't really go anywhere, though I guess you could argue that's kind of the point in some ways. There's lots of bits that haven't aged desperately well. Yeah, I just don't think it's actually particularly great. I mean, it's fine. It's still entertaining. It still makes me crack a smile. But I can't for the life of me figure out why when I was a student and I watched it, I just thought, this is the greatest film in the world. I was curious as to when you first live streamed a game and what was the game. I believe the first time I ever live streamed was actually a Fallout 4 live stream I did not too long after Fallout 4 came out on Twitch, which I did because I was applying for Twitch partnership at the time, though in the end I decided to just kind of not do that and just stick with YouTube instead. But I was applying for Twitch partnership and they basically said, okay, we can't just give you partnership, you need to prove that you can bring in the numbers. So I did a Fallout 4 live stream. And I think we got about 4,000 concurrent viewers watching that. And then I just sent Twitch an email afterwards saying, so, how did that go? I said, yeah, okay, fine, you can have partnership. And in the end, I didn't actually want partnership. They sent me the documents and never signed it. So that was fun. But yeah, that was the first live stream I ever did. Do you watch any video game streamers? If so, would there be any you recommend? Honestly, the only live streams I ever really watch are Dan and Matt's. I generally don't watch much in the way of live streams, though I do watch the Games Done Quick live if I can, because those are very, very fun indeed. Who are your YouTube role models when you started making videos? Absolutely no surprise, it's Dan Nerd Cubed. So, yeah, basically, I saw his videos and thought, that looks fun, I wish I could do that. And, my editing style was heavily influenced by him, It's very simple. I literally watched some NerdCube videos, just thought, I wish I could do that. So I tried doing that, and now here we are, doing the Crew 2 together so many years later. If you could go back in time and introduce technology into the early Roman Empire, assuming it will function correctly with no restrictions, what would you choose to be the most beneficial? Mobile phones. Mobile phones. Because the problem with a big empire is it takes a bloody long period of time to communicate from one side to the other. So miscommunications and failure to receive orders and the empire sort of effectively just having no choice but to quietly internally fragment because, you know, when you're in trouble, you can't wait for orders to come from Rome. So instead, you're just kind of stuck basically dealing with stuff yourself. If you could actually have mobile phones, then Rome could potentially have been effectively centrally administered. Now, probably it wouldn't have helped. In fact, possibly it would have made things worse. But still, it would be nice to see what might have happened. And secondly, for the most chaotic or comedic outcome. Okay, just leave a giant pile of Mentos, a giant pile of bottles of Diet Coke, just dump them in the street, and then while some people are watching, take one of the Mentos, take the Diet Coke, pop it in, create the little kind of spray effect, and then just teleport away back to the future, and do not explain, alright? And just see what happens next. I'm gonna guess they're gonna end up worshipping it. Have you seen the new show Disenchantment? No, Claire and I have been meaning to sit down. We haven't actually seen it yet, but we are totally going to do it because we both really love Futurama. I've heard mixed things, but we're willing to give it a go. John, I know this is super random, but could you check how Lithuania is doing your Crusader Kings 2 playthrough? Next time I record a pod, if I remember, I will try and just kind of do a little checksy roundy to see how Lithuania is getting on. John, if you had to write the plot of a cheesy porno, what would it be and who would star in it? Okay, basically, we're just going to create a biography of King Connor of Crusader Kings 2. We're just going to create the biography and just shoot it. Just like absolutely, perfectly, historically accurate. And everyone will just assume it's a cheesy porno. And we'll just basically man it using like, you know, a holographic projection of King Connor himself. It's going to be marvellous. Of all the cryptids shown so far in Fallout 76, which is your favourite? I do quite like the Grafton Monster, just because I don't really understand what it's supposed to be. Like, some of them you can look at them and think, okay, I can understand that this is like, you know, someone saw like a large domestic cat in the corner of their eye while it was dark and they thought they saw a lion and that's where the Beast of Bodmin comes from. But like, the Grafton Monster, I don't understand what someone saw in the woods that made them think they saw that. So I quite like the Grafton Monster just because it's kind of probably the most mysterious to me because there's not really an easy explanation to it. And the next question was my newest favourite video game song might have some Latin lyrics, and it's what looks like the boss theme from Octopath Traveler. You listen to this and see if you can pick out a few words. I tried, unfortunately, as you mentioned, some people say the vocalist doesn't enunciate enough to tell. I thought I could detect a hint of maybe Dominus, meaning master, and Rus, meaning countryside. It's kind of hard to tell though, I'm afraid you're right. Are you a baddie? Well, I do roleplay as one quite a bit, so yes, go on then, sure. Thanks to one of your previous videos, my girlfriend and I now love the board game Carcassonne. What board game are you best at? Well, I do normally do very well in Galaxy Trucker. I think I do very well in Galaxy Trucker. It's one of my favourite games, so yay. Though I also do pretty well. I think I've had a pretty good hit rate in Seven Wonders. I think I've done pretty decently in that in the past. I'm a US military member stationed in the UK. How does the average English citizen feel about the US being over here? It is kind of just weird a little bit when you think about it, but for the most part, like, you know, the bases are out of the way, so no one really notices or cares. Like, a friend of mine, Claire's, was actually raised on one of those bases, so, you know, it's just kind of, it's just a factor of life. I guess, you know, you don't really think about it, but when you actually just kind of, you know, consider it, it is just kind of weird that the US just basically gets to park its own military and its own bases, basically in huge numbers of countries that, you know, the US doesn't actually own or anything, but they're just allowed to have bases there anyway, just sort of because. So I guess it's kind of weird, but for the most part, we just don't really think about it. It's just, you know, they're just there. John, do you plan on being evil, or does it just come naturally, i.e. Skyrim, Crusader Kings 2, Stellaris Apocalypse? Generally, as a general rule, my default playstyle for a game is to play as an absolute goody two-shoes. Like whenever I'm playing Mass Effect, I'll play as an absolute all-paragon goody two-shoes. However, generally when I'm playing games, like, I like starting off playing as the good guy, but the moment the option becomes available to be a bit evil, I'll immediately take it. And, like, I just like the, like, you know, the arc of it. I think it gives videos a nice arc. If you start off one way, and then slowly you're corrupted, and then all of a sudden you become an absolute evil monster. And then if it's a series and it goes on long enough, you can kind of do something of a redemption arc, which is kind of what I wanted to do with Skyrim. I wanted to do it as, okay, we're going to start off really good, and then we're going to go down a dark path, and we're going to a really dark place, and then it's going to go even flipping darker, and then at the end, we're going to try and, set a few things right, and yeah, I just kind of like that as an arc. I think it just provides a bit of flavour to the actual videos if they've actually got a little bit of a goody two-shoes gets corrupted and then redeemed arc to them. It's quite fun. Have you given any more thought to Rome 2 Total War? I have, but to be honest, I probably don't want to be running a Total War and a Paradox game at the same time, and there's probably Total War games that I would look at before Rome 2. I'm not saying Rome 2's bad, I think Rome 2's alright. It's not the best, but there are things I'd look at first. I'd probably look at Empire and Shogun 2 before I looked at Rome 2. And, also there is Three Kingdoms coming up in early 2019, and that's actually looking pretty promising. So, I don't know when I'll get to it. Also, have you ever played Sun and Sea by Alexis Kennedy, same guy who made Cultist Simulator? I am aware of it, and in fact, I'm pretty sure I own it. I just haven't got round to it, so I don't know when, but I do have it. John, how did it come about that you originally chose to give Dust and Frost a shot in the first place, considering both mods do away with quests, character interactions, and other things that you like about Fallout almost entirely? Well, the fun thing is I kind of really enjoy survival-y stuff, and I really, really enjoyed Fallout 4 survival mode. But I was kind of, looking at it thinking, I kind of wish this were more hardcore. I wish it were more ridiculous and over the top. And that's how Frost came to my attention. And then once Frost had come to my attention, Dust was, a logical follow-on to that. So really, it wasn't so much that I was interested in, the way violence works in Frost. That was just kind of, by and by. It was more to do with the fact that, I'd looked at Fallout 4 Survival and thought, you know what? I quite like a ridiculously nasty, hardcore survival thing inside a Fallout universe. And in, say, the first 10 levels, that's what Fallout 4 Survival is. But then you start to stabilise, and you start to get more powerful, and you start being able to blast your way through things, a little bit like in the base game. Whereas in Frost, well, actually, in Frost, the same sort of thing happens. Once you get a decent set of armour and a decent set of guns, you're in good shape in Frost. Though, in some ways, I do admire the twist of ultimately sending you out to Far Harbour, because then, stripping you of all your stuff and having you start again kind of resets you back to zero, but, with all the knowledge and the perks you already had, so it's a bit easier to get yourself re-established. So, there's stuff I like in there, definitely, but it was more about the survival side of things and the fact that I enjoyed Fallout 4 survival and the fact that I wanted to just kind of, do more of that led me to Frost originally. And a second recommendation from someone else for Split Second. That's twice in just this Patroncast, so yeah, I definitely need to have a little look-see at that at some point. And the final question, and a very important one. Hey John, I know you want a dog when you and Claire get a house. I've always wondered, what are your top 3 dogs that you would want? Oh, okay. I'll kind of put Labradors and Golden Retrievers at the top because I've always loved Labradors and Golden Retrievers. I like Hounds and Pointers because they tend to be very, very, very friendly indeed. Hounds tend to be incredibly sweet-natured dogs, and maybe something like a Red Setter. So can I kind of put vaguely Labradorish shaped things at the top, then Houndish shaped things, and then Settery shaped things? Those setters are very similar. You know what? No, I'm just going to stick to it. I'm just going to put Red Setters in third. I've always thought Red Setters are gorgeous. And that, very important question, is the end. Oh, blimey, this has been a long one. I don't know how long it's going to be when it's edited down, but I feel like this might be the longest Patroncast ever. So, I will leave things off there because I'm hungry and I want to go and get some lunch. This took a fair while to record, so I'm hungry now and I'm going to go and eat a sandwich. I will leave things off there, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a lovely September. I hope I have a lovely September too, because I feel like September, October, November, just looking at the schedule, I think I'm going to be kept busy. I think it's going to be a busy few months. It's going to be interesting. Possibly when you next hear from me in the next Patroncast, I might be sounding a bit more stressed, because I suspect things are going to start getting that way sooner rather than later. We'll see. But in the meantime, I've been John. This has been Many a True Nerd, and this has been the August 2018 Patroncast. Thank you very much, and goodbye.